Chapter 1432. Oh no! The expressions of the demon sect powerhouses changed drastically, especially the terrifying sharpness contained in the torrent of sword intent. It was as if it could tear the world apart. In just one breath, dozens of demon sect disciples were pierced through by the sword intent and fell from the sky. Spiritual light and Taoist rhymes surged around Xuesen and the others. They formed seals out of thin air in an attempt to stop the sword intent. However, how could these false saints from the lower realm be Ling Zhao's opponent? Therefore, the moment the bloody dark qi collided with the torrent of sword intent, the void shattered, and a wisp of blood quietly drifted out. Among the 5 saints, 3 were immediately swallowed by the sword intent. The remaining Xuesen and the Dark Crow sect master were covered in blood and fell from the sky. The entire world was dead silent. Everyone's eyes were filled with shock and fear as they looked at the blood and corpses falling from the sky. Was this the upper realm's prodigy? With a wave of his hand, he could destroy tens of thousands of enemies. Even Xuesen, a saint powerhouse who had been famous for a long time, was as weak as an ant in front of him. Ling Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly and looked at the Dark Crow sect master and the Berserker sect master playfully. In the next moment, 2 tall and burly figures suddenly appeared behind the 2 of them and smashed down with their fists. The master of the Dark Crow sect and Xuesen were astonished. At this moment, both of them were on guard against the young man in front of them. They did not expect a powerhouse to suddenly appear behind them. Therefore, Xiong Huan and the Berserker sect master's fists almost instantly penetrated their defenses and completely smashed their flesh and bones. Gulp. Seeing this, the shock on the Su family's faces intensified. He had smashed 2 4th-grade Sage Realm experts into pieces with a single punch. What kind of divine might was this? As expected, no one from the upper realm could be underestimated. In particular, Xiong Huan and the Berserker sect master both had a tyrannical aura. In front of them, even Su Qingshan felt a sense of inferiority. Speak, who sent you? Ling Zhao walked up to Xuesen and saw that the great elder of the blood demon sect had long lost his vitality, and his face was pale. You can't kill us. There's someone above us. Up there? Ling Zhao raised his eyebrows slightly, and the smile on his face grew wider. Not bad. Our blood demon sect is a vassal force of the blood demon Great Abyss, an immortal sect in the upper realm. My Great Abyss saint will soon arrive here. If you kill us, not only will you die, but the Su family will also be destroyed. Xuesen smiled sinisterly, but when he saw that Ling Zhao's face did not have the slightest ripple, his heart suddenly trembled. The blood demon Great Abyss was not considered an immortal inheritance in the Azure Sky realm. At most, it could be considered a first-rate power. Furthermore, it was a demonic sect that was constantly suppressed. Of course, perhaps in the eyes of the people from the lower realm, all the forces from the upper realm were immortal. As for the blood demon Holy Sun, Ling Zhao had never even heard of him. He was most likely trash. So, the blood demon Holy Sun sent you here? Ling Zhao nodded lightly and raised his foot to crush Xuesen's head. Young master! However, at this moment, Su Qingshan suddenly exclaimed and blocked his way. Young master! Our Su family is indebted to you, but let's let this matter go. At this moment, the Su family's patriarch thought that since Xuesen and the others had already been defeated, there was no need to kill them. Sparing their lives might cause the blood demon sect to hesitate and not attack the Su family. More importantly, Ling Zhao's identity was most likely a young master from the upper realm who came here to train. However, since he was here to train, he definitely could not stay here for a long time. After he left, if the blood demon Holy Sun found trouble with the Su family again, the Su family would not be able to escape death. Let this matter go? Ling Zhao smiled gently and suddenly stomped his foot, crushing Xuesen's head into pieces. Brat! You'll regret it sooner or later. The Dark Crow Sect's patriarch roared angrily, and the yin qi in his body surged. An oppressive and vast aura immediately erupted, and he actually chose to destroy his own physical body. However, before his soul could escape, frost suddenly spread above the void and sealed the heaven and earth. The Dark Crow Sect's patriarch, who was already seriously injured, was directly frozen by the chill and fell to the ground, shattering into ice shards. Su Qingshan's lips trembled slightly, and he only felt a chill rising from the bottom of his heart. He had the urge to cry. "You've acted tough and killed people. If you just leave, the Su family will be no more. Damn it." Today, no matter what, he had to think of a way to rely on this big tree. "Haha, young master, you're decisive and tenacious. This old man really admires you." Su Qingshan took a deep breath and suddenly waved his hand at Su Yen. "Young master, you saved Yen just now. Our Su family is really unable to repay you. Why don't you let Yen stay by your side as a maid?" "What?" Hearing this, Yen Sun's face almost instantly turned ashen. During the battle just now, this old thing said that he wanted to betroth Su Yen to him. The battle just ended, and he gave Su Yen to someone else as a maid? Maid. This is simply an insult to Miss Su Yen. Su Qingshan, are you planning to violate the marriage agreement and become an untrustworthy person? Yen Sun shouted coldly, and his eyes were cold. He would not allow this. He would not allow Su Yen to be humiliated like this. A talented girl who had merged with the heaven and earth spirit fire to be someone else's maid? If Yen Sun still had half of his strength, he would have killed Su Qingshan on the spot. Even so, he was not afraid at all. Even if Ling Zhao's combat strength was terrifying, he was still fearless. When had the Emperor of the 9 provinces ever been afraid? At most, he would take Su Yen away and return to the place where he used to cultivate in seclusion to avoid the catastrophe. When the world of dead souls returned to peace, all the people from the upper realm would leave. Then, who would be his opponent in this world? Of course, the reason why he liked Su Yen was not only because of her talent and her beauty. There was also a more important reason. When he was in control of the 9 provinces, he had accidentally found a heaven and earth spirit fire. However, with his strength, he could not even seal it, let alone merge with the heaven and earth spirit fire. Yen Sun had no choice but to set up a method to conceal the place where the heaven and earth spirit fire was hidden. If he could marry Su Yen, he might be able to learn the heaven and earth spirit fire fusion technique. At that time, he would be invincible. Emperor Yen, it is true that I made this marriage contract with the ancestors of the Yen family. However, the precondition is that the descendants of both parties are in love with each other. Now you have seen it for yourself. Yen is unwilling to marry you. I have no choice. Su Qingshan smiled awkwardly. How about this, Su Yu? I will marry Su Yu to you. In love with each other? Since the marriage contract is about love, have you asked for Miss Yen's opinion when you forcefully sent her to be a maid? Yen Sun snorted coldly and suddenly turned to look at Su Yen. Miss Yen, don't worry. If you are unwilling today, I, Yen Sun, swear on my Tao heart that no one can force you. No one can. Yen Sun glanced at Ling Xiao indifferently without a trace of fear. He had fought with countless enemies in his life. What he hated the most was this kind of noble and arrogant young master. Chapter 1433. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly, a hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth. First stage Sage Realm, mighty Sage Emperor body, and 12,000 Providence points. It was obvious that this god of war, who had accidentally exposed his identity, still had some tricks up his sleeve. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to be so domineering after seeing Lu Xian's combat strength. However, the more trump cards he had, the more benefits Ling Xiao would reap. Even if a force from the lower world like the Blood Demon sect obtained many numinous treasures, It was just a small fortune in Ling Zhao's eyes. The fortune in the hands of these children of destiny was the real fortune. Moreover, this sacred emperor didn't come back earlier or later. He broke free from the shackles just as Spirit Qi was recovering. What did this mean? It meant that his appearance might have something to do with the secret of the world of souls. At least, in Ling Zhao's eyes, these children of destiny from the lower world were the key to opening the treasury of this realm. Humph! Yen Sun's eyes were cold, and his expression was cold. After all, he was once the emperor of this world. He stood high above the 9 heavens and looked down on the common people. His pride was bought with the blood of his enemies. Although the people from the upper world were terrifying, their numinous treasures and cultivation techniques were far superior to those from the lower world. However, with the shackles of the heavenly Tao, even if these people were powerful and had a deep foundation, they could only come to the lower world as saints. Yen Sun didn't think that he was inferior to anyone at his peak. In other words, he didn't have to worry about anyone in this world. Even if the sacred guards didn't appear, he could reach the top of the world again and become a saint again. Young Master's maid and 9 states' divine empress. Was it difficult to choose between these two identities? As long as a woman had some brains and ambition, she would know what to do. Moreover, although this young master was handsome, the women beside him were all peerless. Su Yan wouldn't be favored if she followed him. What was the point? Sacred Emperor Yen, you worry too much. It is Su Yan's honor to be your maid. However, just as Yen Sun snorted in his heart and argued with Ling Xiao, the girl beside him suddenly spoke softly. Yen don't worry. I will definitely Yen Sun smiled warmly, but before he could finish his words, he suddenly froze on the spot. He turned around and stared at Su Yan in a daze. His lips quivered and he couldn't calm himself down. Luck of 3 lifetimes. Miss Su Yan, you can speak the truth. I said that I will protect you, and no one in this world can hurt you. Yen Sun pondered for a moment before coming to a conclusion. Or rather, this was the only possible conclusion. Su Qingshan must have secretly threatened Miss Su Yan. What I said is the truth. To be able to become young master's maid is Yen-er's greatest honor. Su Yan chuckled, not a trace of grievance or embarrassment could be seen on his face. When this scene landed in the eyes of the Su family's people, they were also extremely surprised. Who would have thought that Su Yan, who had always been cold and aloof, would show such a fawning attitude towards a man? Even though this black-clothed young master was indeed peerlessly handsome, possessed extremely terrifying combat strength, and even came from the upper realm, isn't that enough? Her status, background, appearance, and talent were all top-notch. She was impeccable and had no choice but to love her. Yen Sun's eyes widened, and there was confusion between his eyebrows. In his impression, Su Yan shouldn't be such a superficial and materialistic woman. But how did the cold and arrogant goddess in his eyes become someone else's maid in the blink of an eye? Good. I don't want to stay in this Su family anymore. Su family, Su Yan, I will remember you. This humiliation, I will make you pay back 100 times sooner or later. Yen Sun took a deep breath, and his eyes suddenly became deep and profound. A dragon in the shallows would be teased by a shrimp. He didn't expect that after being trapped for 1,000 years, he would be humiliated like this when he returned to the 9 continents. Forget it, when he recovered his cultivation and completely unraveled the secret hidden in the immortal item, the Su family would definitely regret today's matter. Can I understand that you are threatening my maidservant? Just as Yen Sun was filled with resentment and was about to turn around and leave, Ling Xiao suddenly smiled and spoke in a calm tone. Hearing that, not only was Yen Sun stunned, but everyone in the Su family was also stunned. He protected her just like that? Especially Su Yu. Her beautiful face revealed a strong sense of indignation. Why? Why did this Su Yan, who appeared out of nowhere, steal all the glory that originally belonged to her? If not for her, the position of the young master of the Su family should have been hers. When the sacred emperor fought for the limelight, the protection of the young master from the upper world should also be hers. What did you say? Yen Sun turned around and looked at Ling Xiao. His eyes were already filled with an uncontrollable desire to battle. Although I don't like to fight with others, but if someone humiliates the people around me, I naturally won't sit by and do nothing. Ling Xiao's expression was calm, and there was a faint sword aura around him. In the sky, the sound of swords rang, and the wind and clouds changed drastically. Good. When this emperor ruled the world, no one knew where you were. I didn't expect that today, even a junior would dare to provoke this emperor. Yen Sun was so angry that he laughed. No matter how stable his mind was, he was already on the verge of exploding. This feeling of being humiliated and looked down on was really something that he hadn't felt in a long time. So, do you want to fight with this emperor? Boom! Just as Yen Sun finished speaking, Ling Xiao suddenly took a step forward. Behind him, hundreds of ancient swords shone at the same time. Without any nonsense, they slashed towards him. Buzz! In an instant, the void was torn apart, and the torrent of sword aura crushed the heavens. 1,000 feet long sword shadow stretched across the world and slashed down furiously. It actually cut off time and space, causing it to cease to exist for eternity. The scene was simply too shocking. As a result, Su Qingshan swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. In front of such a peerless monster, he didn't have the courage to open his mouth. After all, if he angered this young master, the Su family might very well be destroyed today. What can I do? I've already offended the sage emperor and the devil. I can only use all my strength to suck up to this young master from the upper world. Only then will the Su family have a chance of survival. Yen Sun's expression changed, and the last bit of hesitation in his heart disappeared. Or rather, he didn't dare to hesitate at all. Under this shocking sword, there was no way he could escape. Buzz! At this moment, Yen Sun's body suddenly surged with boundless golden light. In just a short moment, it turned into a holy shadow that was hundreds of feet long, towering in the sky and enveloping his body. The dazzling golden light spread, and the sage's will of the great Tao surged like a river. The void collapsed, and the universe was reversed. Then, the holy shadow suddenly raised his hand and pushed towards the thousands of swords. Chapter 1434. Boom! The 100-foot sword intent swept across the sky and came crashing down. The sacred shadow's outstretched palm was directly shattered by the sword will. Yen Sun's expression changed drastically as the golden light around his body surged. Unfortunately, it was meaningless. Under Ling Xiao's sword aura, his overlord body's divine light did not have the slightest bit of resistance. Finally, countless cracks began to appear on the 100-feet-tall holy shadow. Poochie! In the end, Yen Sun spat out a mouthful of blood as a ray of dark light shone from his hand. The holy figure, along with the entire sky, shattered in an instant. However, just as the sword aura was about to annihilate him, a golden door suddenly appeared behind him. This time, Yen Sun didn't hesitate in the slightest. He directly stepped into it and vanished without a trace. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, but there was no change in his expression. When he came to the lower realm, he had already ordered Ning Chuan to seal the entrance. With Ning Chuan's attainments in array formations, no one below the Supreme Being level could break it. In other words, one could only enter the world of dead souls and not leave. No matter what tricks Emperor Yen had up his sleeve, he would not be able to escape from Ling Xiao's grasp. Clang! As the golden door disappeared, an ancient token fell to the ground. Ling Xiao raised his hand and kept the ancient token. The corners of his mouth gradually curled up into a smile. It was obvious that the divine royal token was a symbol of Yen Sun's identity and also something he relied on to communicate with the experts in the divine royal palace. A spatial spiritual treasure was considered a supreme creation in the lower realm. However, in the midst of the chaos, Yen Sun had no choice but to throw out the token in exchange for his life. Young Master, Yi Qingchan and Xianyuan Weiyang descended from the sky and looked at the direction Yen Sun had escaped with worry in their eyes. Should we? No need. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled with a calm expression. From the looks of it now, Yen Sun should be hiding some other secrets. That was why he had the confidence to challenge him. After all, sooner or later, the good fortune of the lower realm would reappear in the world under the efforts of the children of destiny. At that time, Ling Xiao would only need to use the heaven-shrouding talisman to harvest all of them. A person of destiny with slightly more than 10,000 providence was not worth wasting a providence-plundering talisman on. Not to mention, Ling Xiao had already left a mark on Yen Sun's body when they exchanged blows earlier. As for hatred and whatnot, according to Ling Xiao's settings, since he wanted to fight for the good fortune, he was already in a situation where he would fight to the death with the children of destiny. 100,000 holy guards had been buried, and the remaining holy emperor was nothing more than a treasure-seeking mouse. Ha ha ha, young master is so mighty. Seeing the saint emperor leave in such a sorry state, Su Qingshan and the others immediately smiled and gathered around Ling Xiao. The strength of this young master in front of them could be said to have completely subverted their understanding of the current generation of monsters. Even though Su Qingshan and the others had seen the true geniuses of the upper realm, compared to this young man, they were still too insignificant. He had killed 5 saints and forced the sage emperor to retreat. These feats were enough for the Su family to let down their guard and focus on licking him. Young master, our Su family will have to rely on you in the future. Haha, I still don't know your name, but looking at your divine appearance, you must be the successor of the young master of the immortal inheritance. My name is Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's face was expressionless, and his tone was extremely calm. The expressions on Su Qingshan and Su Kai's faces almost instantly became dull. Ling, that's right, they guessed that Ling Xiao's identity was definitely not ordinary. This kind of combat strength that could crush a saint was not something that could be nurtured by an ordinary sect. However, they still did not expect that this young master was actually from the Ling people. Even though Su Qingshan and the others had been in the lower realm for a long time, they were still deeply afraid of the Taigu Ling people. In fact, in the entire Azure continent, only the Realm Lord Palace could stand shoulder to shoulder with this clan. Even the Sky Saint Business Alliance could only be submissive in front of this force, and did not dare to be rash at all. So it's the Ling people. Young master, you're here. The Su clan did not welcome you, please forgive us. Su Kai exclaimed and almost knelt on the ground. Although he did not know what Ling Xiao's identity was among the Ling people, but even if the Ling people were a dog in the lower realm, it was enough for them to treat it as a distinguished guest. It's fine. I was originally invited by young Master Hua to come here to find the descendant of the Su clan. Ling Xiao smiled indifferently and did not have a trace of arrogance, which surprised Su Kai and the others. Gentle, humble, and decisive. This Lord Ling Xiao could achieve great things. Young Master Hua? No one in the world of dead souls knew about the origin of the Su clan. Back then, the reason why they fled here was to avoid Su Buqian's pursuit. However, how did the Hua clan's young master know about their whereabouts? Of course, with the Hua clan's methods, it was not that they could not find out the whereabouts of Su Kai's lineage. And Ling Xiao only needed to arrange a few chess pieces, and it was enough for Hua Mingxi to sniff out many clues. Now, the Hua clan's young master was indeed not as useful as before. However, don't forget, she still had another identity. She was Zhang Jiuji's second senior sister. And Ling Xiao still needed to find out the whereabouts of the other senior sisters from her. Then, he would follow the vine to find the melon, the green wood sovereign, and the whereabouts of the realm lord. Every step had to be done carefully and not reveal the slightest flaw. And the Su clan in the lower realm was the reason why Ling Xiao lured Hua Mingxi here. As long as the Hua clan's young master descended to the lower realm, there was a high chance that she would not be able to return. After all, I, Ling Xiao, am a man of my word. I said that I would help her find Lei Yun, so I will definitely reunite the two sisters. Young master, let's talk inside. Su Kai, send someone to clean up these corpses. Su Qingshan's face turned solemn. He immediately led Ling Xiao to the main hall. In the end, although Su Qingshan and the others were hiding here, they were always looking forward to returning to the Qing-Tsang continent and the Su clan. Back then, Su Buqian and Su Kai were fighting for the position of the clan head. In the end, Su Kai was defeated and his entire clan was almost slaughtered. That was why they were reduced to this state. However, the Su clan's old ancestors did not care about this. In the end, the principle of the winner being the king was applicable no matter if it was a sect or an ancient clan. Su Buqian won, so he became the clan head of the Su clan. Su Kai lost, so he should bear the crime and struggle at death's door in this desolate lower realm. However, now, the Hua clan's young master and this Ling people came to the lower realm together to search for their traces. Why? Young master, this time you came to the lower realm. Su Qingshan let Ling Xiao sit on the main seat in the main hall while he sat on the lower seat. We will discuss these matters when young master Hua comes. Elder Su, do you know the reason behind the revival of the spiritual qi in this lower realm? At this moment, Ling Xiao was not in a hurry to reveal Su Luan's identity. At the very least, before Hua Mingxi's arrival, he would not show too much enthusiasm to the Su clan to avoid arousing suspicion. Su Luan's purpose was to wait until Su Yan returned to the Su clan. With Ling Xiao's protection, even if this trip did not go well, Su Buqian and his people would not dare to be too presumptuous. And Hua Mingxi was an excuse, an opportunity for Su Yan to return to the Su clan. In this way, in the whole matter, Ling Xiao was just an outsider who was happy to help others. Chapter 1435. The reason. This young master will return to the upper realm after obtaining the good fortune, right? Su Qingshan sighed softly, and his eyes were a little uneasy. Senior, don't worry. I came here because of young Master Hua's invitation. However, I will definitely protect the Su family. At the very least, those disasters must be eliminated before I go to the upper realm. Sensing the anxiety of the Su family's old ancestor, Ling Xiao immediately smiled warmly. Thank you, young master. Thank you, young master. Hearing this, Su Qingshan finally heaved a sigh of relief. The current Su family not only provoked the Blood Demon sect and the Blood Demon abyss behind it, but also offended the Emperor of the Nine States from thousands of years ago. It could be said that they were in a dilemma. If not for Ling Xiao, the Su family's final outcome would only be destruction. However, with Ling Xiao's promise, whether it was the Blood Demon abyss or the Emperor, they would have some concerns. Ling people, to these people from the lower realm, might not be too intimidating. Only those sects and forces with the upper realm background knew what these two words meant. Tell me, what major events have happened in the world of souls in the past year? Young master, in the past year, the Nine States could be said to be in turmoil. Many geniuses have appeared, and even the three great sinner clans have appeared. Su Qingshan smiled bitterly. Compared to the three great sinner clans, the Su family's status was too insignificant. Therefore, when this great calamity descended, the Su family did not have too much ambition. However, Su Yan's appearance was really an unexpected surprise. And if she could really obtain the young master's favor, it might be an opportunity for the Su family to return to the upper realm. As for Su Yan's origin, there was not a trace of doubt at all. With Ling Yuanxing's means, it was easy for him to plant a few pawns in the world of souls. Senior, do you know where the source of the revival of the spirit qi is? Ling Xiao picked up the tea served by the maidservant and took a sip. However, Su Qingshan shook his head hesitantly. Young master, I don't know the exact source, but there is a saying in the world of souls. The reason why this world is so desolate is because a sinner immortal is buried in this world. Sinful immortal. Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows and smiled. Interesting. Young master said, the Hua clan's young master is also coming. That's right. Currently, the Heaven Saint Merchant Union is in a state of chaos. The Hua clan is already powerless to contend against the Lu clan. As for the Su clan, it has been experiencing great changes in recent years. Perhaps it's time for you to return to the Su clan. Ling Xiao nodded, his tone rather calm. But when these words fell into the ears of Su Qingshan and Su Kai, they were like thunder in their ears, unable to calm down for a long time. Return to the Su family? Of course, this is just my opinion. As an outsider, it is naturally inconvenient for me to interfere in the matters of the Sky Sacred Business Alliance. However, I have a very deep friendship with young Master Hua. I will do my best to satisfy her. This, Su Kai and Su Qingshan looked at each other, then suddenly stood up and bowed towards Ling Xiao. Thank you, young master. With just a Hua family young master, it would be difficult for Su Kai's line to return to the Su family. However, if Su Kai had the support of Ling people, then it would be a different story. Where is the Blood Demon sect? Ling Xiao did not say much, but his eyes suddenly flashed with coldness. Blood Demon Abyss, he had heard of this demon sect before. However, this Blood Demon Holy Son did not have any reputation at all. However, in order to show his respect to this demon sect, Ling Xiao still planned to personally make a trip to the Blood Demon sect and confiscate all the loot they had plundered. Blood Demon sect? Young master, it is on the Blood Demon Mountain in the south of the Cloud region. I understand. Prepare a courtyard for me. Do not allow anyone to disturb me. Ling Xiao nodded lightly. Now that the various forces had just descended to the lower realm, he planned to give the Blood Demon Holy Son some time to prepare. As for Ling Xiao's identity, no one knew except for the Su family. If this group of demons personally came to take revenge, it would save him a lot of time. Yes. Su Kai hurriedly stood up and walked out of the hall. Soon, a servant girl came over and led Ling Xiao, Yi Qingshan, and the other two girls out of the main hall and to a secluded place in the city. Young master, if you have any instructions, just tell Yen. Su Kai gave Su Yen a look, and the latter immediately bowed and walked to Ling Xiao's side. Thank you. Ling Xiao pushed open the courtyard door and walked in with the three women. Immediately, he set up the ancient universe formation and sealed all divine soul perception. Young master. When there was no one else in the courtyard, Su Yan's face bloomed with a sincere smile. Thank you for your hard work. Ling Xiao reached out and pulled Su Yan into his arms and sat in front of a stone chair in the courtyard. Yen-er, you should already be clear about the Su family's matters. When Hua Mingxi arrives, act according to the plan. Young master, don't worry. Su Yan smiled gently and chatted with Ling Xiao about many interesting things in the lower realm. Yi Qingshan took out a tea set and stove from her universe ring. She sat cross-legged and burned incense to make tea. Late at night, Xianyuan Weiyang looked at the three people talking and laughing in front of her, and her beautiful face was slightly tired. Young master, Sister Qingshan, Sister Su Yan, I'm going to rest first. In terms of age, Xianyuan Weiyang was actually much older than Yi Qingshan and Su Yan. But her temperament was too weak. Except for Bai Jishi, she called everyone sister. When she walked into the room, Yi Qingshan's lips curled into a smile. Young master, it's late. Why don't we rest early? Ah, Sister Qingshan, then let's go together. Ling Xiao smiled and carried Su Yan in his arms. He held Yi Qingshan's jade-like hand, and with a thought, his figure instantly disappeared on the spot. Realm, Spirit Spring. In the spring, the moonlight was mottled and there were many figures. In the jagged waves, the moonlight was shattered and the water vapor rose, creating endless ripples. This reunion of ice and fire was destined to be a never-ending battle song. Hiss-ah! The next day, when the sun rose, Xianyuan Weiyang opened the door and saw Yi Qinchan and Su Yan sitting in front of the stone table. Their faces were beautiful and their bodies were radiant. "Sister Qinchan, did you and Sister Su Yan not rest at all last night?" Xianyuan Weiyang rubbed her sleepy eyes, and there was a lazy and surprised look on her face. Hearing this, Yi Qinchan and Su Yan looked at each other and smiled but didn't say anything. At the same time, on the 8th floor of the Glaze ancient pagoda, Ling Xiao put his hands behind his back and looked at the darkness in front of him. There was a faint surprise in his eyes. Now that he had entered the Sage Realm, the seal on the 8th floor could no longer stop him. After Feng Ling left, Ling Xiao also didn't come to the pagoda for a long time. However, before Feng Ling left that day, she said that she wanted to find something. According to Ling Xiao's guess, the thing she wanted to find was probably not in the Azure World, but the real immortal domain. Then, how did she break through the barrier of the mortal realm and ascend to the immortal domain? After the great war of the immortals and demons, the immortals not only sealed a few major demon clans, but also destroyed all the passages from the mortal realm to the immortal domain. In that case, where did the sealed spirit go? Buzz. Just as Ling Xiao was pondering, a figure suddenly walked over from the darkness in the distance. Chapter 1436. Buzz. A gust of wind suddenly blew in the originally calm space of the ancient pagoda. A figure shrouded in darkness slowly walked toward Ling Xiao. However, Ling Xiao was surprised that the demonic figure's aura was only at the first level of the Saint Realm. It was not even comparable to the reckless demon realm. Something was wrong. Ling Xiao frowned slightly. According to the order of appearance of the demonic creatures in the ancient pagoda, the higher the level, the stronger the cultivation of the demons. If Ling Xiao was right, the demon on the 8th level should be the last demon in the pagoda. In other words, the 9th level was the place where the Foliaceae sealed the demonic bones. The great demon on the 8th level was definitely more terrifying than the reckless demon realm. However, the first level of the Saint Realm? It was only when the figure in the darkness walked in front of Ling Xiao that the latter's face revealed a hint of surprise. At this moment, the figure in front of him was himself. Or rather, it was a figure that was identical to him in terms of appearance, aura, and cultivation. It was Ling Xiao's first time encountering the mirror image Dao Law. Interesting. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. The demonic figure also had a smile on his face. It was very lifelike. If the terrifying part of the overlapping shadows was its transformation and concealment, then the demonic figure in front of him was the ultimate imitation. In this aspect, he was somewhat similar to Little Wu. It was just that he didn't know what level his battle prowess was at. Buzz! A wisp of sword essence suddenly gathered at Ling Xiao's fingertip. The demonic figure's hand was also filled with sword essence. In fact, even the power of the Wei contained within was the same. Could it be that he had also comprehended the sword principle? Ling Xiao's eyes turned cold. He suddenly stretched out his hand. Lightning surged on it, and the divine inscriptions moved freely. A surprising scene occurred. The demonic figure's hand was also blooming with lightning. It was filled with an extremely violent aura. Interesting. Ling Xiao grinned. Without any hesitation, he waved his hand and clashed with the demonic figure. Boom! A terrifying loud noise immediately resounded. Ling Xiao and the demonic figure both retreated dozens of steps before stabilizing their bodies. To be honest, Ling Xiao's heart was filled with astonishment at this moment. Originally, he had thought that the demon's technique was similar to an illusion. However, it was only when their fists collided that he realized the true terror of this devil. Not only could he change his appearance, but he could also perfectly deduce his strength and Tao laws. It should be known that young Master Wu's divine body could only deduce cultivation method. However, this demon was even able to manifest Tao laws. What kind of ability was this? This was a power that defied the heavens. Fighting with him was equivalent to facing an exact copy of himself. How could he win? Of course, it would not be easy for the devil to win. However, from the very beginning, he had placed himself in an invincible position. However, at this time, Ling Xiao had some guesses. If the devil could deduce all his strength, he did not have to go through so much trouble. He could just use a supreme attack to suppress him on the spot. Therefore, there must be a limit to his ability to deduce. It was very likely related to time. Not bad. This is really getting more and more interesting. Ling Xiao grinned. Suddenly, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Then, he clenched his fist and the demonic blade of samsara appeared in his hand. The devil also clenched his fist and formed an identical modeled ancient blade. However, in the next moment, endless demonic will suddenly surged around Ling Xiao. It circled around the ancient blade and slashed down furiously. Buzz! An ear-piercing buzzing sound suddenly resounded. The entire space of the ancient pagoda was shattered by the demonic light. A purple divine lightning descended from the sky and enveloped the demonic figure. However, this time, his expression was not as calm as before. Instead, it revealed a look of intense fear. Sky Demon will. The demonic figure was so flustered that his eyes were filled with despair and the desire to die. In the next moment, he revealed his true form and tried to block the purple lightning saber momentum. Boom! However, this was the space of the ancient pagoda. Ling Xiao could change the situation here with just a thought. Moreover, the sky demon will had the power to restrain all demons. Therefore, the moment the saber momentum fell, the demonic figure finally let out an unwilling roar and knelt on the ground in despair. But, just as the saber momentum fell 3 feet above his head, it suddenly stopped. The trembling body of the demonic figure gradually calmed down. He slowly raised his head, revealing a gentle and handsome face. Especially those eyes. They were as deep as the sea of stars, but there was no trace of demonic nature. Instead, they were extremely gentle. "Who are you?" Ling Xiao said indifferently as he sheathed his saber. In this world, there were some forces that could be deduced. However, there were some forces that could not be deduced. Otherwise, the word forbidden would be too weak. "I am Li Yan, the Mirror Demon. Greetings to Lord Sky Demon." Mirror Demon? Ling Xiao nodded gently. He had guessed the power and limitations of this demon. "The power that you have copied cannot last long, right?" "Yes, I can only use it the moment my opponent uses his power." Li Yan scratched his head and looked a little embarrassed. "Moreover, this kind of power cannot exceed the limits of my physical body." "What is your limit?" Ling Xiao smiled. He did not expect the mirror demon to be so pure and kind. That kind of clean and shy smile was really easy to let one's guard down. "My realm is at the level of an earthly sovereign. Therefore, the power that I can withstand can only be below the level of a heavenly sovereign." "I see." Thinking about it, if Li Yan could copy the power regardless of the realm, how could he be trapped here? However, to be able to copy the power of a peak level 9 sovereign with the cultivation of a first-grade earthly sovereign, it was an extremely incredible talent. "Are you willing to submit to me?" In the end, Ling Xiao did not say any more nonsense. Now that the Qing Tsang world was in chaos, he needed people around him. With Li Yan's means and strength, he would be a good help. "Lord Sky Demon, you don't lack subordinates, right?" "I have no ambition. I only want to find a quiet place in the mountains to raise fish and flowers and teach a few children to read and write." Li Yan shook his head, his eyes gentle and persistent. "This is not up to you. Now that the celestial tribe controls the 9 heavens, Once your identity is exposed, you will be killed. You only need to follow me. When I regain control of the world, I will return your freedom." The soul runes in Ling Zhao's eyes condensed and turned into a soul seal, standing in the void. On the other hand, Li Yan glanced at Ling Xiao in surprise before nodding. "So my lord is in trouble. That's good too. Li Yan will first help my lord before helping myself." His voice was still extremely gentle, without the slightest bit of displeasure because of the soul seal. It was as if he was a demon that could not be angry, and all he thought about was others. Buzz. Chapter 1437. As the soul seal fell, Li Yan's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of confusion, but he quickly regained his clarity. "Greetings, my lord." Ling Xiao waved his hand and directly brought Li Yan out of the ancient pagoda and into the realm. Feeling the terrifying spiritual qi in this realm, Li Yan's eyes suddenly revealed a trace of surprise. "What a rich spiritual qi, what a beautiful scenery. You stay here for the time being and recover your cultivation. This realm is full of my followers, you can choose a place where no one is around to cultivate." Ling Xiao smiled helplessly. A gentle demon? No wonder Li Yan was sealed in the 8th level. With his talent, he should have been a demon lord who dominated the world. But his temperament was too kind and he stood aloof from worldly affairs. With Yi Luoyun's temperament, he could be suppressed with a little trick. "Thank you, my lord." Li Yan respectfully bowed to Ling Xiao, then lifted his foot and walked down the hall. But what surprised Ling Xiao was that he didn't choose to cultivate in seclusion immediately. Instead, he visited all the creatures in the realm one by one. Even the ancient Fusong tree and the green carp were not left out. It was really funny. In the Su family's courtyard, a layer of ripples suddenly appeared in the void. Ling Zhao's figure descended from the sky, but Xianyuan Weiyang's pretty face suddenly turned red. Immediately, she stood up from the stone chair with an uneasy expression. She looked at Su Yan and Yi Qingchan, who were smiling playfully, at a loss. Finally, she ran back to her room with a red face. "What did you say to her?" Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. He picked up a cup of tea on the table and took a sip. "It's nothing. This Lady Weiyang is truly too naive." Yi Qingchan and Su Yan looked at each other and smiled. There was inexplicable meaning in their eyes. "Is Hua Mingxi here?" "I don't think so. Otherwise, the Su clan would have sent someone to invite young master over." Su Yan shook his head. However, Ling Zhao's expression suddenly became somewhat gloomy. "Let's not wait anymore. Let's first deal with the calamity of the Blood Demon sect." Now that 2 days had passed, the Blood Demon sect had not come to take revenge. It was clear that the Blood Demon Holy Sun had most likely not arrived yet. However, the reason why Ling Xiao had come to the lower realm was to harvest the person with destiny. He could not stay in the Su family for long. "Yes, young master." Su Yan and the other man exchanged glances before following Ling Xiao out of the courtyard. "Oh, young master, where are you going? Wait for me." Xianyuan Weiyang's voice came from the courtyard, and a smile appeared on the faces of the three. When the 4 of them arrived in front of the Su family's main hall, Su Kai, Su Qingshan, and the other 2 stage elders were already bowing and waiting. It was obvious that there were servants of the Su family outside the courtyard, constantly paying attention to the actions of Ling Xiao and the others. When they saw Ling Xiao, the faces of the Su family's experts immediately revealed a trace of humility. However, when they looked at Su Yan, there was more or less a deeper meaning in their eyes. She had not returned for an entire night. It seemed that this maid was very doted on by the young master. "Senior Su, I plan to make a trip to the Blood Demon sect. Young master, this old man will go with you?" Su Qingshan's eyes were slightly cold. As a force of the Cloud Prefecture, he was naturally familiar with the methods of the Blood Demon sect. Especially the Blood Demon sect's master, who was the true top expert of the Cloud Prefecture. The might of the blood demon evil technique was unparalleled. Even Su Qingshan was extremely wary of it. No need. Yen, or you stay as well. When Hua Mingxi arrives, tell her to wait for me in the Su family. Ling Xiao said indifferently. The moment he stepped out, a golden dragon carriage appeared, carrying Ling Xiao and the other two towards the Blood Demon Mountain. Farewell, young master. Su Qingshan and the rest bowed and did not get up for a long time. At the same time, at the border of the Cloud Prefecture, in a barren mountain forest, Yen Sun's figure fell from the sky in a sorry state. His face was pale and his aura was extremely weak. For the entire day, he did not even rest for a moment as he was afraid that Ling Xiao would catch up to him. This young man's strength was simply too terrifying. According to Yen Sun's guess, even if Su Mo was at his peak, it would still take some effort to kill him. Damn Su family, damn Su Yen. Just you wait. Yen Sun took a deep breath and clenched his fist. A bronze fragment suddenly appeared in his hand. Ancient runes circled around it and the Taoist rhyme was leisurely. It contained supreme immortal intent. Wait until I integrate the immortal rhyme in this fragment and comprehend the divine runes on it. Then, my cultivation will definitely recover. At that time, Thinking of this, Yen Sun immediately calmed down. He found an empty cave and set up a sealing enchantment. Then, he began to cultivate again. The Blood Demon Mountain was a majestic ancient mountain located in the south of the Cloud Prefecture. The entire mountain was blood-red, as if it was watered with fresh blood. It was a ghastly sight. Of course, compared to this mountain, the demon sect in this mountain was more famous. The Blood Demon sect could be said to be the most famous demon sect in the Cloud Prefecture. Usually, no one dared to provoke them. More importantly, it was said that this sect had some background in the upper world. Even the 3 sinner clans had to be courteous to them. Although the Cloud Prefecture was not the most prosperous divine prefecture in the 9 prefectures, the Blood Demon sect's sect master was truly a powerful figure in the 9 prefectures. At this moment, in the main hall at the peak of the mountain, a skinny old man in a blood-red robe was twirling a string of white-boned spiritual pearls in his hand. His eyes were extremely sinister. So, Xuesen and the others died in the hands of a sword cultivator? Sect Master, according to my investigation, there was a shocking sword qi in the sky above the Su family that day. There was also a terrifying chill that sealed the heavens and earth. Below the main hall, a middle-aged man in a blood-red robe nodded gently. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. With the strength of Xuesen, the Dark Crow sect's sect master, and the others, it was easy for them to destroy the Su family. However, they were all dead. Even the Rakshasa Dowlord and the others could not escape. Not even a trace of their divine souls could escape. They were directly annihilated in the Su family's ancestral land. Obviously, with the Su family's strength, it was impossible for them to do this, unless a powerful figure from the upper world had descended to the Su family. Have you found out? Who did it? The Blood Demon sect's sect master frowned. He did not dare to act rashly in the past 2 days because he was worried that there would be more trouble. Now that the entrance to the world of souls had opened, countless geniuses from the upper world had entered this world. Although the Blood Demon sect had the support of the Blood Demon Abyss, the saint had not arrived yet. It was not time for them to show off. When the saint arrived, not to mention the Su family, even the supreme sects in the 9 prefectures would have to bow down to the Blood Demon sect. No. Those who saw the sword cultivators attack that day were almost all from the Su family. The Su family has strictly prohibited their members from going out, so, the middle-aged man's face sank. He glanced at the Blood Demon sect's sect master with fear. Trash. Looks like we can't touch the Su family for the time being. How's the looting of the other forces? The Blood Demon sect's sect master muttered to himself. Originally, He had planned to destroy the Sioux family and present the Sioux family's young master to the saint. Now, it seemed that there was a powerful figure from the upper world hidden in the Sioux family. With the blood demon sect master's strength, he might not be able to win even if he showed up personally. However, the Cloud Prefecture was vast and had countless sections. Now that he had sent his disciples to various places to search for spirit stones and spirit treasures, there should be some gains. Sect Master, don't worry. The other sects are doing well. Now, the Blood Demon sect's treasury has been completely filled. Chapter 1438. Good. As long as the saint descends, we can offer up our spiritual treasures. If the saint is happy, he might lead us back to the upper realm. The Blood Demon sect's sect master smiled sinisterly. Blood runes filled his eyes, making him look extremely evil. Although the world of souls had recovered its spiritual chi, the spiritual chi in the world of souls had been restored. However, many young master successors of the upper realm's immortal inheritances had descended here. In the end, they would definitely take away the divine item that had awakened the spiritual aura. In this way, it probably wouldn't be long before the lower dimensions would return to its former desolate state. Only by following the saint to the upper world and returning to the Azure continent was the correct way to open the path to immortality. Sect Master is wise and far-sighted. Just as the two of them were talking, a dragon's roar suddenly resounded in the sky above Mount Blood Demon. Vast dragon might swept down, suppressing heaven and earth. The holy will of the great path fell from the sky, intimidating all the demonic beasts in the mountain. The Blood Demon sect master was stunned for a moment before a look of wild joy appeared on his face. The Holy Sun had arrived. These 2 days, he was constantly on the edge, secretly guarding against the Sioux family's revenge. But now, it seemed that he had worried too much. If the one who killed Shwesen was someone from the upper realm, then he must have heard of the infamy of the Blood Demon Abyss. As such, who would dare to come to Mount Blood Demon and act presumptuously? Quick! Come with me to welcome the Holy Sun. The Blood Demon sect master took a step forward and instantly appeared before the great hall. As for the Blood sect's elders, they stepped out of the hall, bowed behind the Blood Demon sect's sect master, and raised their heads to look at the sky. Instantly, the entire Blood Demon sect descended into chaos. Countless disciples bowed in the plaza, their eyes filled with fear. At this moment, a golden dragon jade carriage descended from the horizon. The great Tao trembled, and endless ripples appeared in the void. Vaguely, there seemed to be divine runes spreading out for 90,000 miles, and the immortal opportunity was awakened. This is a monster from the upper realm? This is too terrifying. They actually used a sacred dragon as a carriage. When the dragon carriage came to a stop, Ling Xiao stepped out. There was a faint smile on his fair and handsome face. Beside him, Yi Qingchan and Xianyuan Weiyang stood on his left and right respectively, their gazes extremely cold. In this lower realm, the cultivation of an ordinary person of the same generation was only at the peak God-Emperor realm. Occasionally there would be some outstanding talents, but they would only be in the first or second rank of the exalted realm. They could not be compared to the people of the upper realm. Moreover, whether it was Yi Qingchan or Xianyuan Weiyang, their battle prowess was not something that people of the same cultivation level could contend against. Therefore, even the saints of this world were not intimidating to them at all. An immortal? When they saw the appearances of Ling Xiao and the other two, many of the Blood Demon sect's disciples immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. Other than shock, there was also a strong sense of astonishment in their eyes. Whether it was Ling Xiao or the two women beside him, their faces could be said to be flawless like jade. Especially the noble and transcendent aura emanated by the three of them that looked down upon all living beings. It wasn't something that the dogs of the lower dimensions could compare to. Furthermore, Wherever the gazes of the three of them passed by, everyone would unconsciously lower their heads with fear and unease in their eyes. Even the blood demon sect master was no exception. It couldn't be wrong. The Holy Sun must have descended. Otherwise, who in the world of dead souls would be worthy of having such an immortal aura? Greetings, Holy Sun! Greetings, Holy Sun! Cheers rose and fell one after another, like a tsunami that spread for thousands of miles. At this moment, thousands of disciples on Mount Blood Demon bowed at the same time, deeply bowing to the three people above their heads. However, at this moment there was suddenly an astonishing sword intent above everyone's heads. The Blood Demon sect master was stunned. He raised his head in astonishment, only to see hundreds of sword shadows standing behind the black-clothed young man in the sky with unparalleled divine might. Immediately after, the young man suddenly waved his hand, and tens of thousands of streams of light suddenly fell like a killing formation that almost enveloped the entire square. Gulp! What's going on? Ah! I've been stabbed to death. The sword aura slashed down, an endless sword intent spread out. The strands contained frightening sword Tao rules. From afar, the entire void above Mount Blood Demon seemed to be filled with tens of thousands of divine intents that pierced through the sea and slaughtered all the demon sect disciples below. In front of Ling Xiao, these disciples from the lower realm were no different from ants. Even a few of the Blood Demon sect's elders had died in the torrent of sword Tao. You're the sword cultivator from the Su family. At this moment, the Blood Demon sect master finally understood that the young man who suddenly descended in front of him was not the holy son of the Blood Demon Abyss, but the sword cultivator from the Su family who had killed Xuesen and the others. But you're a righteous person. It's fine if you're dressed like a demon sect villain, but what's the meaning of such a blatant massacre? Damn it! Set up the Blood Demon Ancient Formation. The Blood Demon sect master shouted angrily, and his figure was the first to soar into the sky. Around him, endless blood patterns evolved into mountains and seas, surging with a terrifying momentum. With his cultivation of the fifth stage of the Saint Realm, it was enough to protect himself, but to protect the sect was a fool's dream. However, if it were in the past, the Blood Demon sect master would most likely turn around and flee when faced with such a strong enemy. As for these disciples, as long as he did not die, he would have all the disciples he wanted. But now, the Blood Demon sect had spiritual treasures and spirit stones plundered from all over the Cloud Prefecture. If he fled, these resources would all fall into the hands of this black-clothed young man. How would he be able to curry favor with the Holy Sun? After weighing the pros and cons, the Blood Demon sect master still decided to give it his all and quietly crushed a blood jade in his hand. This blood jade was an inheritance of the Blood Demon sect. It could warn the Blood Demon Abyss. Now, it seemed that Ling Xiao's strength was not something they, the saints of the lower realm, could resist. They could only inform the Holy Sun as soon as possible and let him come forward to solve this disaster. Humph! You can be strong as you like, but when I, the Blood Demon sect's Holy Sun, descend, all of you will have to bow down to me. Buzz! Vast blood intent pierced through the sky, connecting the four directions. All of a sudden, countless formation runes appeared on Mount Blood Demon, covering the figures of all the disciples and elders in the air. A pungent blood aura flowed out, blocking the descending sword momentum. At each of the four corners of the formation, there was a Saint Realm expert channeling their spiritual energy into the formation in an attempt to resist Ling Xiao's attack. Seeing this, Ling Xiao's lips suddenly curled into a gentle smile. He suddenly clenched his hand, and a pitch-black ancient saber suddenly appeared. Then, he raised his hand and gently slashed at the blood formation. Buzz! The void within thousands of miles was instantly torn apart, and a pitch-black saber radiance silently fell from the sky. However, where the saber radiance passed, the heavenly Tao seemed to be completely obliterated. Time, space, and even reincarnation were all shattered by this saber radiance. The Blood Demon sect master opened his mouth slightly. There was nothing but fear in his eyes. Quick, quick, stop him. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly reached out his hand, grabbed the two venerable realm elders beside him, and threw them toward the blood formation above his head. Buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, countless blood runes suddenly appeared in the blood formation. They actually entangled and swallowed the two elders, turning into surging formation power. Boom! In the end, the saber radiance crushed down and collided with the blood formation. Chapter 1439. Crack! Just as the saber light fell, a crisp shattering sound immediately resounded throughout the entire Mount Blood Demon. Even the sect protection formation that had gathered the spiritual energy of 4 saint stage powerhouses could not withstand the saber aura at all and completely collapsed into a bloody mist that filled the sky. The Blood Demon sect master's expression changed drastically as he watched the saber light fall from the sky and split the entire Blood Demon temple open from the middle. The 3 elders in charge of maintaining the formation almost instantly coughed up blood and were sent flying. They no longer had the slightest bit of combat power. This scene was like a demon to all the disciples of the Blood Demon sect. Although they had long known that the demons of the upper realm were extremely talented, they still did not expect them to be so terrifying. 1 sword to kill hundreds of venerables and god emperors. 1 saber to crush 4 saints. Was he still human? He was simply a god in the sky. The Blood Demon sect is a vassal of the Blood Demon Abyss in the upper realm. The Blood Demon Holy Sun is already on his way. If you dare to kill me, the Holy Sun will definitely not let you go. Looking at the figure slowly walking over from the void, the Blood Demon sect master's face finally turned pale. Even though he was a 5th-level saint stage cultivator, he was still too insignificant in front of this young man. His sword intent and saber aura seemed to have transcended the scope of the realm and had a domineering aura that could kill the world. It was too terrifying. These demons of the upper realm were really ridiculously strong. They could not be measured by age at all. Demons are unforgivable. Ling Xiao shook his head and raised the demonic saber in his hand, wanting to kill the Blood Demon sect master on the spot. But, at this moment, the sound of rushing wind suddenly came from above the void. A bloody cloud fell from the sky, enveloping the firmament and annihilating everything. That eerie and strange aura made one's scalp tingle. In the sweet and fishy air, a figure stood at the top of the sky and slowly walked over. It was a young man in a blood-red robe with a fair face. However, his long and narrow eyes were blood-red in color. His aura had obviously not reached the saint stage yet, but the blood veins floating around his body were like a raging sea, rolling over and over. "Who dares to be so impudent in my Mount Blood Demon?" the young man shouted coldly. He lowered his head and looked at the corpses on the square below. His eyes suddenly narrowed. Behind him was an elder in a black robe. His eyes were eerie and holy while lingered around him. However, just as their gazes fell on Ling Xiao, a hint of surprise flashed in their eyes. Especially at this moment, the golden dragon jade carriage that occupied the void almost instantly caused the 2 of them to have a guess. Her black clothes were peerless, and her celestial appearance was unparalleled. The young master of the Ling people, Ling Xiao. All the major clans already knew about Ling Xiao's arrival in the lower realm. However, the Blood Demon Holy Sun did not expect that he would meet the sword immortal of this generation so soon. Holy Sun, Saint, save me! The Blood Demon narrowed his eyes, and a heartfelt smile appeared on his face. The Holy Sun had arrived. This young man is going to be in big trouble. However, even in his dreams, The Blood Demon Sect Master would never have imagined that just as he was feeling emotional, the Holy Sun would suddenly bow to the young man in front of him. You have offended Master Ling Xiao. Even I, the Blood Demon Abyss Master, can't save you, let alone me. The Blood Demon Holy Sun snorted coldly. The smile on his face was gentle, and there was no longer the arrogance from before. The Blood Demon Holy Sun, Li Chen, greets the Lord Ling Xiao. Li Chen? Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly. He did not care about the Blood Demon Sect Master, who staggered to the ground with a dazed expression. He nodded slightly. The Blood Demon Sect slaughtered people and stole the numinous treasures. Did you order this? Haha, young master, what are you talking about? Although the Blood Demon Abyss is not a righteous sect, we do not covet the numinous treasures of the lower realm. Li Chen shook his head and smiled, his attitude extremely humble. Although in the lower realm, many sects were not as fearful of the Ling people as they were in the upper realm. In fact, with the restrictions of the heavenly Tao, this descendant of the Ling people definitely did not have a strong protector behind him. However, this realm had just opened, and Li Chen did not want to fight with this sword Tao monster right away. If that's the case, you can go back. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and ignored the gloominess in Li Chen's eyes. He turned to the Blood Demon Sect Master and said, "Let's go. Take me to see your harvest these days." This, to be honest, the Blood Demon Sect Master's heart had already turned cold. He never dreamed that the Holy Son of the Upper Realm, who was like a god in his eyes, would be so cowardly. He had not even made a move, but he had already knelt down. Of course, although the Blood Demon Sect Master had some connections with the Upper Realm, he was still from the world of souls. He had never heard of the terror of the Ling people. But even so, his heart was still filled with endless fear. A young man who even the Holy Sun was afraid of. His identity and background had already surpassed his understanding. Wait a minute. However, just as the Blood Demon Sect Master got up and was about to bring Ling Xiao to the back of the mountain, Li Chen's voice suddenly sounded. "Oh? Is there something else, Holy Sun?" Ling Xiao smiled and said in an extremely gentle tone. From the moment Li Chen appeared, he had no intention of letting this upper realm prodigy go. Although this Blood Demon Holy Sun did not have any providence, if today's matter were to spread, it would inevitably damage Ling Xiao's reputation. Moreover, Ling Xiao did not believe that this Holy Sun did not have a trace of resentment in his heart after the Blood Demon Sect was destroyed. Releasing a tiger back to the mountain depended on whether the value of releasing it or killing it was greater. For example, Yen Sun's escape was due to providence. Due to his hatred for the Su family and Ling Xiao, he would definitely think of ways to find opportunities to become stronger. Meanwhile, Ling Xiao only needed to wait patiently for the treasure to appear. With the heaven-concealing talisman in hand, these sons of providence could only be harvested by him. However, this Li Chen was obviously a villain, a stepping stone. Letting him go would only cause trouble. This way, killing him would end everything. Haha, I have long heard of young master's righteousness. To be honest, I came to the Blood Demon Sect today to retrieve something. Li Chen glanced at the Blood Demon Sect Master with a fake smile. As for the rest, they all belong to young master. How about it? Something? What is it? Hearing that, Ling Xiao was instantly interested. Something that could make Li Chen not hesitate to offend him would definitely not be simple. Suddenly, Ling Xiao felt that the treasure that the Blood Demon Sect Master had plundered was no longer attractive. Haha, actually, it's not anything important. It's just that this item has extraordinary significance to the Blood Demon Abyss. I hope that young master will be magnanimous and ask Li Chen to take it away. Li Chen's eyes were deep as he pretended to be casual. I see, Blood Demon Sect Master. Ling Xiao nodded slightly. However, The blood demon sect master in front of him suddenly reached out and took out a blood-red crystal from his universe ring. He said respectfully, "Holy Son, you are talking about the blood demon crystal, right? I have already prepared it." However, just as the blood demon sect master stepped forward and was about to hand the blood crystal to Li Chen, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his back. He saw a pitch-black ancient blade piercing through his chest, directly crushing his heart. Chapter 1440. You, the blood demon sect master turned his head with all his might and looked at the calm and indifferent face. There was clearly some doubt in his eyes. Why did this young master, who looked like an immortal, always do something unexpected? He slaughtered the common people and did whatever he wanted. His methods seemed to be more in line with the style of a great demon. Before the blood demon sect master could figure it out, he saw the young man's eyes suddenly bloom with soul light. His divine soul was directly torn out by a wave of divine power and swallowed into nothingness. All of this happened in the blink of an eye. By the time Li Chen reacted, the blood demon crystal had already landed in Ling Xiao's hands. "Lord Ling Xiao, what is the meaning of this? I see that this item is evil. It's better for me to keep it unless—" Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile, and there was a hint of evil in his eyes. "Saint, can you tell me the use of this blood crystal?" Li Chen's eyes trembled slightly. He felt that this young master of the Ling people's temperament seemed to be very different from the rumors. There was nothing wrong with killing evil spirit. However, his actions were both good and evil, giving people an unfathomable feeling. More importantly, Li Chen suddenly had a feeling that this young master of the Ling people didn't intend to let him go from the beginning to the end. "Ling Xiao, I respect you as the young master of the Ling people, so I tolerated you again and again just now. You better not go too far." At this thought, Li Chen's eyes were densely covered with blood runes, and blood energy surged around him like a real blood demon. The blood demon sect's predecessor was the inheritance of a supreme expert in the blood demon abyss. This blood demon crystal was left behind by this demon sovereign when he had fallen. However, this item was completely useless to ordinary cultivators. Its true use was part of the blood demon abyss's inherited sacred artifact. Only when this crystal was compatible with the sacred artifact could it unleash its strongest power. This time, Li Chen's main purpose for coming here was to find this blood crystal, not to look for the fortune. He just hadn't thought that Ling Xiao would actually arrive at the blood demon sect before him. What was even more unexpected was that this young master's gentleness and humility were actually all an act. Li Chen originally thought that as long as he was humble enough, Ling Xiao would at least give him some face. Even if he took away the entire foundation of the blood demon sect, as long as the blood crystal was still with the blood demon sect master, it was not a loss to Li Chen. In a lower realm, even sacred artifacts were as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. What kind of good fortune could there be? However, from the looks of it, the young master of the Ling people had wanted to kill him long ago. Oh! Overboard? The blood demon sect slaughtered the people and plundered their treasures. I killed evil demons, and you actually said that I went overboard? Holy Sun Li Chen, your ability to distort the truth has really opened my eyes. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled, not taking Li Chen's threat seriously at all. However, a completely unknown genius from the upper realm actually dared to be so unyielding. This Li Chen seemed to be something. He did not have any providence and did not have a divine body. What was this guy relying on? In that case, young Master Ling Xiao is determined to be my enemy? Li Chen raised his head and glanced at Yi Qingchan and Xianyuan Weiyang. He nodded lightly. You're wrong, Holy Sun. I did not mean to be your enemy. I am irreconcilable with all the evil demons in the world. Ling Xiao smiled coldly and did not say anything else. The moment he waved his hand, Xiong Huan, Shi Patian, and brute devil's figures immediately appeared and pounced on the old man behind Li Chun. At this moment, he could feel that this old man's cultivation was at least at the 7th stage of the sage realm. With Yi Qingchan and Xianyuan Weiyang's current cultivation level, it was impossible for them to be his match. Good. Irreconcilable with all the evil demons. Ling Xiao, this is the lower realm. No one will protect you anymore. Li Chun gritted his teeth and looked coldly at Xiong Huan and the other two. Fortunately, Ling Xiao did not have anyone at the peak of the sage realm by his side. This way, he still had a chance. He had to get the blood demon crystal back. Since the young master of the Ling people wanted to kill him, there was nothing to worry about. I, Ling Xiao, am open and aboveboard. The heavenly law will protect me. Ling Xiao smiled. His black robes fluttered in the wind. Then, he took a step forward and charged towards Li Chun. Arrogant. Although Li Chun acted tough on the surface, he didn't underestimate Ling Xiao in the slightest. He was the only young master of the Taigu Ling people in 100,000 years. Just this identity alone was enough to explain many things. He suddenly clenched his fist, and a blood-colored halberd appeared in his hand. Suddenly, the void darkened and thousands of daos went silent. Countless blood traces appeared in the sky and turned into a surging ocean. Li Chen's figure was like a god of war who walked out of a sea of blood. He was evil, terrifying, and insufferably arrogant. Blood demon halberd art, 8,000 forces. Buzz. Li Chen struck out with his halberd, and the sea of blood behind him suddenly surged. The world in front of Ling Xiao suddenly turned blood-red. Even the sky was dyed red. A terrifying pressure pressed down, as if a sea of blood had fallen. It had the power to suppress all living things. Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes and slashed out with the demonic blade in his hand. The void was instantly torn apart, and the sea of blood was directly split into two. However, in the next moment, Ling Xiao narrowed his eyes, and murderous intent rose in all directions. At this moment, he could see that Li Chun had actually turned around and pounced towards Yi Qingchan and Yi Qingyu after launching the attack just now. To him, there was no meaning in fighting Ling Xiao at this moment. He only needed to capture one of the two women to exchange for the blood demon crystal in Ling Xiao's hands. Then, his trip would be complete. As for whether he would meet Ling Xiao again when the true treasure of this world appeared in the end, that was another matter. After all, he wasn't afraid. He just didn't want to reveal his trump card too early. Buzz. However, just as Li Chun reached out his hand to capture Xianyuan Weiyang, he saw layers of ice floating in the void in front of him. A terrifying chill quietly pervaded the air, and the hand that he had stretched out strangely lost all feeling. How is this possible? Li Chen was stunned and his eyes turned cold. However, before he could react, the ice crystals that were fluttering in the air suddenly sped up and enveloped his figure like a snowstorm. Crack! The blue sky was sealed in a breath. Even the rift seemed to have come to a standstill, like an ancient glass mirror that was emitting a seven-colored glow. Ling Xiao looked up and saw that Li Chen had been frozen into a sand sculpture. There was no trace of relaxation in his eyes. At this moment, he could feel that Li Chen's aura was rising at a terrifying speed, and his realm had reached the second stage of the Saint stage in just a few breaths. It was obvious that the blood demon Holy Sun was going to use his true trump card in the face of Yi Qingchan's attack. Chapter 1441. Suddenly, a black light bloomed in the sky. Ling Xiao took a step forward, and the demonic blade in his hand slashed down toward Li Chen's head. At this moment, he naturally felt the latter's surging aura. In fact, he could even vaguely sense a trace of vicissitude in this aura. However, no matter what Li Chen's trump card was, Ling Xiao did not intend to give him a chance to use it. Crack! In an instant, the ice crystal shattered, and the Frost Dao law that imprisoned Li Chen was shattered by Ling Zhao's saber. However, just as the demonic blade was about to pierce through Li Chen's body, his eyes suddenly opened. They were like a sea of blood, surging with thousands of ripples. Ling Zhao narrowed his eyes, and the ancient blade in his hand shone brightly with lightning. Countless avatars appeared in the sky, but this time, there was no trace of panic in Li Chen's eyes. He raised his hands and used the blood halberd to collide with the demonic blade of Samsara. The terrifying power directly crushed the entire sky. Li Chen's figure was sent flying, and he only stopped after crashing through several ancient mountains. In the sky, Ling Zhao held the demonic blade in his hand and looked down at the smoke and dust that filled the air. At this moment, he vaguely felt that Li Chen seemed to be a different person at this moment. He had an ancient and immortal feeling. Suddenly, a figure walked out of the smoke and dust. Ling Zhao narrowed his eyes slightly, but the corners of his mouth curled up in a sinister smile. At that moment, strange blood tattoos covered half of Li Chen's face. From afar, it looked like half a mask like a demon, and it was frightening. Behind him, a pair of bone wings drooped down, and it was extremely intimidating. Ling Zhao, I'll give you one more chance. Hand over the blood demon crystal, and our grudges will be written off. Li Chen's voice was inexplicably hoarse, and his eyes that were covered by the blood patterns actually showed a sinister white color. In that eye, Ling Zhao seemed to see endless white bones covering the ground, a sea of blood floating, and the wheel of tribulations. Write it off. Ling Zhao shook his head. At this moment, he already had some guesses in his heart. There seemed to be a terrifying creature sealed within Li Chen's body. This kind of half-human, half-demon posture was indeed very intimidating. But the problem is, I'm not human either. With the demonic qi surrounding Li Chen's body, even if Ling Zhao used the sky demon will, it would not be detected by these ants from the lower domain. Very good. You should be proud that you can become the first sacrifice after my seal is broken. Li Chen smiled sinisterly. Without any warning, a white bone hand shot out of his white eye and pierced towards Ling Zhao. This strange scene was indeed a huge visual impact. However, it was of no use to Ling Zhao. He held the saber in one hand and slashed down. Boundless Taoist rhymes gathered on the blade. Time stopped and chaos reopened. The countless white bones shattered, and Li Chen's figure was annihilated in the void. There was a sudden buzzing sound. Ling Zhao's eyes turned cold. He felt a terrifying force surging behind him. He turned around and punched out. At this moment, Li Chen also stretched out his palm behind him. Layers of blood veins covered his palm. His divine power was unparalleled. It was like the bloody arm of a demonic god that wanted to suppress Ling Zhao on the spot. In comparison, Ling Zhao's punch was too hasty and too perfunctory. Crack! The moment the two fists collided, the crisp sound of bones breaking was heard. Terrifying spatial ripples spread out. Even though Li Chen clearly had the upper hand in this punch, he was still sent flying by Ling Zhao. Even the arm covered by the blood veins had countless fine cracks. It was about to shatter. How is this possible? Li Chen's eyes narrowed. The mockery in his eyes had long disappeared. At this moment, he realized that this young master of the Ling people's fame was not only due to the Ling people. Whether it was the sword Dao or the strength of his physical body, he could completely crush him without the seal. That's right. Li Chen's name was rarely mentioned. The Blood Demon Abyss was originally a demonic sect in the Azure Sky sect. It was always resisted by the orthodox cultivators. As the Holy Son, Li Chen also shouldered the heavy responsibility of reviving the sect's prestige. Therefore, after his cultivation reached the Venerate realm, he made a bold decision. He sealed an ancient demon that was worshipped in the Blood Demon Abyss into his body. This process was extremely dangerous and painful. If he was not careful, he would even be possessed by the ancient demon and completely become a killing machine. Fortunately, after 100 years, Li Chun finally succeeded. Therefore, he rarely appeared in the battles of the current generation. It was because in these 100 years, he had been on the verge of death. Originally, when the world of souls opened this time, he had planned to crush the current generation and become famous. But now, it seemed that he had underestimated the talents of the Azure Sky sect. At this moment, facing Ling Xiao, he had already unsealed half of the power, but he was still easily crushed by this young master of the Ling people. It seemed that if he did not use his full strength today, he would really be born and die. Boom! Blood spurted out from Li Chen's body again. The blood tattoo that had originally only covered half of his face turned into countless tentacles. As if it was alive, it quickly climbed towards his entire body. Vast demonic power surged out, and every blood mark seemed to contain extreme power. His aura rose again, reaching the 3rd level of the Saint Realm. Even his eyes had turned white at this moment, revealing an endless amount of strangeness. This is terrifying demonic qi covered heaven and earth. Under this aura, even Xianyuan Weiyang's face was inexplicably pale. At this time, she could feel that the Li Chun in front of her was no longer a living creature of flesh and blood, but a real demon. Towering over heaven and earth, the demonic power was shocking. Is this the complete form? Ling Xiao looked at the changes in Li Chen's body, but there was no trace of emotion on his face. It was obvious that Li Chun had completely unsealed at this time, releasing the power in his body that did not belong to him. Sealing a demon into one's body could indeed increase one's combat strength in a short time. However, relying too much on external forces would ultimately make it difficult to reach the peak of heaven and earth. Ling Xiao, Azure Sky, you are the first to force me to use this demonic body. If I don't kill you today, I, Li Chun, will end my own reincarnation. Li Chun laughed sinisterly, his tone domineering. In his opinion, no matter how strong Ling Xiao was, he was just a saint. However, the ancient demon he had merged with was once the peak of heaven and earth. Are you worthy of being called a demon? Ling Xiao stood in the air, demonic intent swirling around him. However, under the cover of the divine light around him, this demonic intent did not attract the slightest bit of attention. This was the lower realm. The heavenly Tao's order was not enough to withstand the power of a supreme weapon. Therefore, even if the snow-tide rock was hidden in the dark, it could not use the power of the immortal demon Ancient Bell. Setting a flag? Poof! Do you understand what I mean, everyone? Buzz. As a buzzing sound resounded through heaven and earth, Ling Xiao's eyes suddenly split open, and a black vortex seemed to appear. His figure almost instantly disappeared from where he stood. Then, an indescribably terrifying demonic power suddenly gathered. A figure shrouded in multicolored light appeared strangely in front of Li Chun. The pair of outstretched hands were covered in black scales, and the demonic power was ancient. Every trace of it contained a terrifying power that could destroy heaven and earth. Chapter 1442. Ling Xiao's most terrifying ability was the Sky Demon's body that had fused with the demon bone, forged the sword bone, and had the unforgiven demonic armor. After all, the Sky Demon's body was different from ordinary divine bodies and sacred bodies. It was an innate body that was born in the primordial world and tempered by the heavenly Tao. Even though Ling Xiao had yet to awaken his 9th transformation stage, his physical strength was still incomparable to that of the current generation. In the past, Ling Xiao did not have the chance to use the Sky Demon's power in the Azure world. But now, in the lower realm, without the restrictions of the Realm Master Hall, he could finally test out exactly how strong his physical body was when he used his full strength. Boom! Without any nonsense, Ling Xiao did not even care whether the person standing in front of him was Li Chun or the ancient demon sealed in his body. As he punched out, the chaotic demonic intent intertwined and fell. Everyone could only see a pure black whirlpool gathering under his fist. What surged within it were streaks of completely different principal power. Divine trees, tides, flames, and mountains rose and fell one after another. Yin and yang reversed, chaos was reborn, and time and space alternated. Vaguely, these Tao laws seemed to fuse into one, destroying everything and destroying the nine heavens. Furthermore, under this punch, Li Chen's surging battle intent instantly froze. There was no way to resist. Or rather, they were not even on the same level. Ling Xiao had already surpassed the limits of the current generation. In other words, this punch had no realm. Even a supremacy would not be able to withstand the destructive power of this punch. Boom! Finally, Ling Xiao's punch landed on Li Chen's chest. The blood tattoos that covered the latter's body shattered almost instantly. No, it should be said that the current Li Chen was directly shattered by Ling Xiao's punch. From head to toe, from the inside out. Regardless of whether it was his divine soul, his bones, or the ancient demon that he had fused with, they were all shattered by this destructive power. Is this the power of the sky demon? Ling Xiao lowered his head and looked at his palms. His eyes were extremely calm. At this moment, he did not expect that the seemingly indestructible blood devil would be so weak that it could not even withstand a single blow from him. It was actually directly turned into nothingness by his fist. Not even a trace of its spiritual consciousness was left behind. Xiong Huan, stop. Feeling the sudden surge of demonic power in the distance, Ling Xiao's face changed and he immediately shouted. Xiong Huan's fist that was supposed to land on the Blood Abyss Saint's head immediately froze in the void, and then he turned his head with a blank expression. Master! Bring him here. Ling Xiao gave Yi Qingqian a look, and the latter immediately understood. A cold light appeared in her eyes, and the entire peak of Mount Blood Demon was suddenly covered in white snow. Compared to Ling Xiao's domineering methods, Yi Qingqian's methods had a wider range and were much more convenient to slaughter. Now, the blood demon sex experts were all dead, but there were still some disciples who were scared out of their wits and curled up on the ground, shivering. As for the demons, we naturally have to kill them all without mercy. Buzz! The sky was filled with ice crystals, and it was like an unparalleled celestial scene. In just a short moment, the entire Mount Blood Demon seemed to be covered in snow. Even the palace and ancient trees were covered in a layer of sparkling ice crystals, dazzling and resplendent. As for the Blood Demon sect's disciples, who were only at the God Emperor and Divine Lord realm, they were sealed into ice sculptures and no longer had a trace of life. After doing all this, Yi Qingqian landed beside Ling Xiao with a smile on her face. She hugged his arm and stuck to his body. Tell me, what's the use of this blood demon crystal? Ling Xiao played with the blood-colored crystal in his hand and lowered his head to look at the blood demon Abyss Elder, who was crushed to the ground by Xiong Huan and Shirpatian. Humph, Ling Xiao, you're cruel and tyrannical. Before he could finish his sentence, black flames suddenly burned in Ling Xiao's eyes. The Sage Realm expert felt his entire body boiling. His entire body was enveloped by the black flames and slowly burned into nothingness. You buzz. A wisp of soul light quietly surged, and the Sage Realm expert's divine soul was absorbed into Ling Xiao's soul sea and devoured. I see. Ling Xiao's lips curled into a smile. He suddenly clenched his fist, and the blood demon ancient halberd that fell to the ground buzzed and turned into a stream of light that fell into his hand. When Li Chen used this halberd earlier, Ling Xiao also felt its power. A mid-grade saint artifact. For ordinary sects, this grade of saint artifact was already the best. In fact, even a faction like the Blood Demon Abyss only had a mid-grade saint artifact. However, to Ling Xiao, sacred weapons and whatnot were too common. Of course, mid-grade and low-grade saint artifacts were naturally not attractive to Ling Xiao. As for high-grade and peerless saint artifacts, even in the entire Azure world, they were the best treasures. After all, the only supreme artifact in the world now was the immortal demon ancient bell in the Realm Lord's palace. This blood demon crystal was originally one with this halberd. It was unknown how it ended up in the lower realm. Or it could be said that this sage realm elder did not know. Li Chun had obviously come to the lower realm for this blood demon crystal. He should have known the origin of this item long ago. Ling Xiao sized up the countless demonic runes on the blood demon halberd. His eyes turned cold. He gently pressed the blood demon crystal on the totem in the middle. Buzz! Suddenly, there seemed to be demonic shadows on the blood demon halberd. Waves of demonic aura that could be seen with the naked eye spewed out, turning into a sea of blood that floated 30,000 miles. The void trembled, and the azure sky was dyed red with blood. Even Yi Qingqian and Xianyuan Weiyang took a few steps back in surprise. Clearly, they could not resist the ferocity of the halberd. Only Ling Xiao stood on the spot with the blood demon halberd in his hand. There was no change in his expression at all. A high-grade saint artifact was unparalleled in demonic power. It was a rare treasure. Weiyang, you don't have a natal spiritual treasure yet, right? Ling Xiao turned to look at Xianyuan Weiyang, who was panicking, and suddenly smiled warmly. Young master, the demonic aura in this halberd is too terrifying. I'm afraid only the human emperor's saint blood can suppress it. You should learn to hold the halberd first. With that, Ling Xiao casually threw the blood demon halberd to Xianyuan Weiyang. Then, he walked down the mountain. Sure Patian, go and move the treasuries at the back of the mountain. Yes. Young master, Xianyuan Weiyang hugged the blood demon halberd tightly with both hands. Her delicate body trembled slightly. Clearly, she did not expect the blood demon halberd to be so heavy. However, when she felt the terrifying demonic aura surging from it, her eyes flashed with joy. What she cultivated was the power of her bloodline. Although the demonic aura in the halberd was rather demonic, she would be able to suppress it completely if she was given some time. At that time, the power in the halberd would be the human emperor's saint aura. Young master, Weiyang will definitely not disappoint you. She will definitely learn how to hold the halberd. Chapter 1443. Young Master. When Ling Xiao and Yi Qingqian reached the foot of the mountain, Su Yan's voice came from the universe ring. Young Master Huath is here. Su Yan's voice was calm. Ling Xiao nodded indifferently and said, "Tell her to wait." When he used his polychoria earlier, he suddenly had a bold idea. Since his eyes could merge with the power of the nether fire, did that mean he could also absorb the heaven and earth spirit fire? Especially now that Ling Xiao had merged with several heaven and earth spirit fires, his power was unprecedented. If he could merge the heaven and earth spirit fires with his polychoria, would he be able to burn everything in his sight? Qingqian, wait here for Shurpatian. With that thought, Ling Xiao disappeared from the spot. Realm, Heavenly Hall. Now that Ling Xiao had perfected the law of time, the flow of time in this realm was several times slower than the outside world. 1 day here was equivalent to 10 days in the outside world. Ling Xiao sat quietly in front of the Heavenly Hall, his body covered in flames. The dark flames that were between black and purple almost incinerated the void into nothingness and formed numerous deep and terrifying spatial rifts. At a certain moment, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. The purple flames formed by the fusion of the 3 heaven and earth spirit fires suddenly gathered in one of his eyes. Suddenly, the sky darkened and the wind and clouds changed. Bolts of lightning surged through the sky, tearing everything apart as if it was the end of the world. Everyone looked up in horror and looked in the direction of the heavenly hall. There, a figure was quietly sitting cross-legged, like a god, one of a kind since ancient times. Above his head, a blood moon shone brightly and devoured all light. However, what was terrifying was that there seemed to be a purple-black lotus shadow beside the blood moon. It appeared and disappeared, containing the power of nothingness. Merge! Ling Xiao shouted coldly. The purple heaven and earth spirit fire surged into a whirlpool and disappeared into Ling Xiao's left eye. Time froze, and the heavenly Tao ceased to exist. Even the strange phenomenon in the void quietly disappeared at this time. At this moment, both of Ling Xiao's eyes were tightly shut, but there was blood dripping from his left eye. It was a ghastly sight. Until the young man's eyes abruptly opened, and the space before him instantly shattered. Boundless purple-black divine flames soared into the sky, engulfing heaven and earth and incinerating everything. However, Ling Xiao's eyes were strangely divided into two forms. His eyes were as red as blood and a black moon rose. One eye was like a lotus, while 3 petals burned the sky. Did you succeed? Ling Xiao stood up and looked up at the sky. A smile suddenly appeared on his face. Buzz. Accompanied by a buzzing sound, the divine light in Ling Xiao's eyes dissipated. His figure also disappeared from where he was and appeared at the foot of Mount Blood Demon. Young Master! Seeing the figure descending from the sky, Yi Qingqian immediately revealed a smile. She turned into a green shadow and rushed into the young man's arms. For some reason, after coming out of seclusion this time, she felt even more captivated. She wanted to feel his warmth at all times. Let's go. Ling Xiao casually put Xiong Huan and the others into his realm. Then, he hugged Yi Qingqian and sat in the dragon carriage, heading toward Misty Cloud City. At this time, he did not even check the cosmos pouch that Xiong Huan and the others handed to him. In the lower realm, sacred artifacts were extremely rare. What kind of precious fortune could there be? Look, the young master is back. Quickly, report to the Patriarch. In Misty Cloud City, countless figures walked out of the Su family's main hall. The one leading them was not the Su family's patriarch, Su Qingshan, but a beautiful woman in white. At this moment, there seemed to be a faint smile on her face. Compared to a year ago, Hua Mingxi's aura was clearly more vigorous, faintly touching the boundary of the sacred stage. Beside her, Su Qingshan, Su Kai, and the others stood quietly, looking somewhat reserved. The Hua family's young master, regardless of status or identity, was no longer comparable to the current Su Kai and the others. Just as Ling Xiao said before, the Hua family's young master came this time to bring the Su family to the upper realm so that they could join forces to fight against the Lu family. From Hua Mingxi, Su Kai and the others already knew that the Su family's young master, Su Shan, had been robbed and killed 200 years ago. The current Su family's young master was a piece of trash called Su Yu. He only knew how to eat, drink, and play all day long. Even his cultivation level was increased by elixirs. Greetings, young master. The dragon carriage stood tall, and a black-clothed figure walked over. Her face was full of gentleness. The corners of Hua Mingxi's mouth curled up into a bright smile. She actually bowed down under the dumbfounded gazes of Su Kai and the others. Young master? Ling Xiao had already revealed his identity. Taigu Ling people. However, Su Kai and the others still did not expect that this young master was the young master of this clan. This identity was 10,000 times more honorable than the Hua family's young master or the Su family's young master. Suddenly, Su Kai and the others felt a little terrified. They felt that they did not respect this Ling people's young master enough. Even if the Su family had already treated him as a distinguished guest, but it was still not enough. Plop! Accompanied by a dull sound, Su Kai suddenly knelt down on the ground and said in a heavy voice, "I didn't know that the young master was coming. Please forgive me." "It's fine." Ling Xiao smiled without any arrogance. "Mingxi, long time no see." "Yes, it's been a year." "Young master, do you miss Mingxi?" Hua Mingxi's eyebrows were like silk, and a blush appeared on her beautiful face. With her identity, it was indeed a little frivolous for her to say such words. Even Su Kai and the others had a faint look of surprise on their faces. However, before Ling Xiao could speak, a wisp of cold air quietly spread between heaven and earth. Hua Mingxi's eyes narrowed slightly as she turned her head to look at the young lady in green standing beside Ling Xiao. She frowned slightly and asked, "This is... Oh, I forgot to introduce her to Mingxi. This is Yi Qingchan, my concubine." "Yi Qingchan?" Hua Mingxi suddenly smiled and looked meaningfully at Ling Xiao. Hua Mingxi naturally knew about this new master of the Foliaceae. Previously, it was because of this lady that Ling Xiao's name was known throughout the Azure continent and was feared by all clans. The patriarch of the Foliaceae was even killed by a supreme existence of the Ling people. This incident had almost become a shadow in the hearts of many heavenly sovereigns in the Azure continent. They did not expect that she would actually come to the world of dead souls with young master this time. However, looking at Yi Qingchan, she was indeed beautiful. Her cold temperament was different from Gu Chaoxiai's indifferent and domineering temperament, but it gave off an inexplicable attraction. "I have heard about you for a long time." Hua Mingxi nodded slightly. Although she was smiling, there was no trace of warmth in her voice. "Let's go in and talk." Ling Xiao shook his head with a smile and took the lead to walk into the main hall of the Su family. Hua Mingxi smiled slightly and seemed to ask casually, "Young master, did Empress Gu not come? After parting in Dao Sky City, I really miss the Empress." Hearing that, Yi Qingchan's pretty face turned cold, but the corners of her mouth curled up into a bright smile. She looked at Hua Mingxi as if she was looking at a dead person. Chapter 1444. Young Master, I heard that you accepted a girl from the Su family as your maid? In the main hall of the Su family, Hua Mingxi sat in the lower seat with a smile. Ling Xiao smiled and turned to look at Su Yan. "What do you think, Mingxi? The girl that young master likes must be the best in the world." Sigh. Mingxi is so envious. "Alright, Mingxi, let's talk about business." Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. His expression was inexplicably dignified. "Alright, young master, I have already talked with Senior Qingshan. The Su family is no longer what it used to be, but Su Buqian's family still controls the Su family. If you want them to return, I'm afraid it will be a little difficult, but," Hua Mingxi smiled and looked at Su Yu. "It's not a problem to arrange Miss Su Yu into the Su family alone." "Su Yu?" Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows slightly and the smile on his lips deepened. "It's fine as long as Mingxi decides." If Ling Xiao hadn't met Su Luan before, he would have been caught off guard by Hua Mingxi's actions. After all, with his status, it wasn't difficult to arrange Su Yan into the Heavenly Saint Business Alliance. But if he wanted Su Yan to have a high position in the Su family, he would have to use a lot of means. However, with Ling Xiao's understanding of Hua Mingxi, he wasn't too surprised at this time. This woman had shown how scheming she was in Dao Heaven City. With regards to Ling Xiao, she was more of using him than relying on him sincerely. In other words, if there was a man who was more useful to her in the future, Hua Mingxi would definitely kick Ling Xiao away without hesitation and throw herself into the arms of others. And this was the reason why Ling Xiao didn't intend to take her in. "I think so." Hua Mingxi still had a warm smile on her face. She didn't even look at Su Yan from the beginning to the end. Although she wasn't sure if Ling Xiao and Su Yan had any relationship before. However, she had to be extremely cautious when dealing with the young master of the Taigu Ling people. These young masters and successors who truly stood at the peak of the world, which one of them wasn't a scheming person. One must always be on guard against others. Although Miss Su Yan is more talented, she is also more likely to attract attention. Once someone secretly investigates, there is always a risk of being exposed. Miss Su Yu's talent is also extremely outstanding, but regardless of appearance or realm, there is a gap between her and Miss Su Yan. Hence, I feel that she is more suitable for this plan. Hua Mingxi's words were not blunt, and even Su Yu's face showed a trace of embarrassment. However, everything she said was also reasonable, and no one could find fault with it. The tallest tree in the forest is the first to be destroyed by the wind. Compared to Su Yen, Su Yu was indeed more ordinary and wouldn't attract attention because he was too stunning. Of course, Hua Mingxi had another motive for doing this. Su Yen was simply too demonic. No one knew if she would become arrogant after she ascended to heaven. With Ling Zhao's support, she might be able to escape Hua Mingxi's control. On the other hand, Su Yu was much easier to control. What Mingxi said is extremely reasonable, but since I have accepted Su Yen as my maid, Yen, you will follow me in the future. Ling Zhao nodded and chuckled, and had no objection to this. From the beginning to the end, he didn't intend to let Hua Mingxi go. What she was doing now was only accelerating her own death. Yes, young master. Su Yen bowed slightly, but her beautiful eyes flashed with a touch of gloominess. Young master had arranged for her to be in this world of souls in order to use Hua Mingxi to return to the Heavenly Sage Business Alliance. However, it was obvious that Hua Mingxi didn't take the bait. Haha, the two geniuses of the Su family returned to the upper realm together. This is really a joyous matter. Come, prepare the banquet. Su Qingshan waved his hand, and many maids and servants immediately came to the hall, bringing wine and delicacies. Ling Zhao and Hua Mingxi sat side by side, chatting and laughing, without showing a trace of displeasure. With Su Luan as a chess piece, Su Yan's road to return to the Su family was more open. Hua Mingxi was insignificant. Young master, where do you plan to go next? During the banquet, Hua Mingxi also asked Ling Zhao about his plan to go to the lower realm. Ling Zhao didn't hide anything at all, and directly told her that he coveted the sinful immortal's relic. Haha, since young master is here, as long as the relic appears, it won't be able to escape from young master. Hua Mingxi smiled bitterly, as if she was a little disappointed. But in the next moment, a hint of worry appeared in her eyes. Young master, when I went to the lower realm, I heard that the young master of the demon-controlling sect also came to the world of souls, and seemed to be quite dissatisfied with young master for killing the disciples of the demon-controlling sect. Oh? The young master of the demon-controlling sect? Ling Zhao was slightly stunned, and a handsome figure in a blue robe appeared in his mind. If he guessed correctly, the young man hiding in the ancient forest that day should be the young master of the demon-controlling sect. 14,000 points of providence was a pretty good harvest. That's right, and I also heard that the demon-controlling sect seems to have an extremely powerful inheritance in the world of souls. After saying that, Hua Mingxi suddenly smiled. Of course, how would the young master care about these lower realm forces? I heard that when young master went to the lower realm that day, he even killed Shi Haotian of the Shi family. In Hua Mingxi's opinion, these two pieces of news were a favor that she gave to Ling Zhao, and it could be considered as making up for her rudeness of directly choosing Su Yu. Although Hua Mingxi was on guard against Ling Zhao, if the Hua family wanted to control the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union, they still couldn't do without the young master of the Ling people. Ha ha ha, Mingxi is still the most meticulous one. The demon-controlling sect is an opponent that can't be underestimated. Ling Zhao raised his wine cup and lightly clinked it with Hua Mingxi's, then he raised his head and drank it in one gulp. What do you plan to do next, Mingxi? Young master, you must be joking. Mingxi's talent is ordinary. How can I compete with all the monsters in the world? I plan to bring Sister Su Yu back to the Azure world. With Hua Mingxi's talent, she was indeed not at the top of the Azure world. Even if she stayed in the lower realm, it wouldn't be her turn to fight for the treasure. What she cared more about was the ownership of the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union. You're going back just like that? Young master, there are still a few months before the Heavenly Saint Merchant Union selects the young master. Mingxi still needs to go back early to make some preparations. When the time comes, Haha, young master, these are your spiritual materials. I asked someone to collect some more. Hua Mingxi handed a qiankuan bag to Ling Xiao, and the latter immediately revealed a meaningful smile. Haha, Mingxi, happy cooperation. Young master, happy cooperation. At this moment, both of them had a sincere smile on their faces, but no one knew what they were thinking in their hearts. After eating and drinking to his heart's content, Ling Xiao didn't stay in the Su family for long. After bidding farewell to Hua Mingxi, they agreed to meet again in the upper realm. And he brought Xianyuan Weiyang, Yi Qingchan, and Su Yan to Feng Prefecture. Over there was a chess piece that the Ling people had arranged in this world. Ling Xiao had already found out that this chess piece had already established a sect and became an overlord of Feng Prefecture. According to Ling Xiao's guess, if a child of destiny appeared in Feng Prefecture, such an overlord force would most likely become a stepping stone for some people. Moreover, the Ling people's setting was originally that of a villain. They were high above the masses and acted ruthlessly. It was easy for them to attract the hatred of the child of destiny. In the sky, the dragon carriage was moving horizontally, heading towards Feng Prefecture at an extremely fast speed. Chapter 1445. In Misty Cloud City, Hua Mingxi stood with her hands behind her back and looked at the dragon carriage. At this moment, there was no smile on her face. There was only endless coldness, asking a tiger for its skin. Although she could gain temporary authority, she still risked being eaten by the tiger. She and Ling Xiao were just using each other to get what they needed. This was a line that they were smart enough not to cross. After all, in this world, everyone had their own way of looking at the snow. Everyone had their own way of looking at things. Ling Xiao helped her to get the power of the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance, and she secretly provided many spiritual materials and treasures for Ling Xiao to fight for the heavens. This was Hua Mingxi's choice, and it was also her bet. Miss, are we really going back to the upper world? Behind Hua Mingxi, a white-haired old woman of the 8th level of the Saint Realm appeared. Her eyes were full of vicissitudes. The current Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance was on the verge of chaos. If Hua Mingxi could not turn the tide, when the little god of wealth of the Lu clan ascended to the position of the young lord, perhaps the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance would completely change its structure. Although the Business Alliance was jointly controlled by the 3 aristocratic families, it was impossible to only rely on the 3 families to run such a huge business alliance. Therefore, in addition to the Lu, Hua, and Su clans, the Heavenly Sacred Business Alliance also included many ancient clans and sections, and these people would eventually become the chess pieces that controlled the fate of the Hua and Su clans. Let's go back. With Ling Xiao here, not to mention these heavens' prides from the lower world, even the descendants of the young lords of the Qing Song continent would not be able to escape death. It's better for us not to get involved in this chaos. Hua Mingxi nodded indifferently. Until footsteps came from behind her, a smile appeared on her face again. Young Lord Hua, so you are here. Father asked me to give this Qiankuan bag to you. Su Yu's figure appeared behind Hua Mingxi. Her face was full of humble expectation. If Su Kai had succeeded in fighting for the position back then, her status would have been the same as Hua Mingxi's. However, this immortal path was full of twists and turns. Sometimes one's fate would change overnight. Thank you, Miss Su Yu. Do you remember what I told you? Hua Mingxi took the Qiankuan bag and looked at Su Yu with bright eyes. Don't worry, young master. Su Yu will remember. When we reach the Azure Sky world, Su Yu will listen to young master's orders. Although, in the end, she was not able to become Lord Ling Zhao's servant, nor was she able to marry Yen Sun as she wished and become the divine empress of the 9 provinces. But compared to Su Yan, she was undoubtedly luckier. She was recognized by young Master Hua and was allowed to return to the Su family. Although this path was dangerous, as long as she could succeed, It was not something a mere servant girl could compare to. Humph. Su Yen, you're the one who lost. That's great. Hua Mingxi nodded and chuckled. She took the initiative to take Su Yu's hand and walked towards the entrance. However, just as the two of them were about to disappear, Hua Mingxi suddenly turned her head and glanced at the old saint stage woman. Her eyes were cold. Seeing this, the old woman immediately nodded. Her figure once again hid in the void and disappeared on the spot. Until Hua Mingxi and Su Yu were far away, there was a sudden fluctuation in the ancestral land of the Su family. A formation stood tall in the void, enveloping the entire Su family. Then, endless blood qi filled the air. Countless disciples of the Su family rushed out of the main hall in panic. They wanted to escape, but to their despair, they found that the entire ancestral land had been sealed. The 8th level of the Saint Stage was the most powerful existence in the world of souls. Su Qingshan and the others could not compete with it. Above the void, several figures appeared again. Among them, the leader was a young man in black. His face had long been covered by the clouds, but there was a demonic aura in his eyes. That's right, the one who just left was Ling Zhao's stainless Taoist body. His real body had long been hidden in the void, waiting for Hua Mingxi to leave. Although he had predicted that the young master of the Hua family would not give Su Kai and the rest a way out, he knew that the young master of the Hua family would not let Su Kai and the rest live. But he still underestimated the ruthlessness of this woman. As soon as she left with Su Yu, she turned around and sent a protector to slaughter the Su family. However, in this way, it saved Ling Xiao a lot of trouble. After all, Su Kai and the others were not dead. It was still a flaw. Now, everyone in Misty Cloud City knew that the Su family had provoked several demonic sections. Therefore, it was not surprising that the entire family was slaughtered. The 9 states was in chaos, and the various sects kept attacking. Countless cultivators died every day. This kind of thing would at most be discussed for a few days, and then it would be forgotten. The dangers of this world were ultimately in the hearts of people. 8th level of the Saint Stage. Are you confident? Ling Xiao turned his head and glanced at Xiong Huan, Shirpatian, and the barbaric devil. If it were not for the fact that the heavenly Tao of the lower realm only allowed the Saint Stage to descend, he could casually send out a martial ancestor to kill this old woman on the spot. Of course, although Xiong Huan and the others' cultivation was below the 8th level, their combat strength was not comparable to ordinary saints. Even if a great demon who had once stood tall in the 9 heavens died, its will would still be immortal. Moreover, in the lower realm, they did not have to worry about their identity. Don't worry, my lord. Xiong Huan and the others bowed, and a shocking fighting spirit surged in their eyes. Forget it, let's get rid of this old thing first before chasing after Hua Mingxi. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. Demonic veins flowed in his eyes as if a demonic god had descended, shocking the world. It was not that he did not trust Xiong Huan and the others, but now that they had just come to the lower realm, he did not want them to suffer any harm and affect his next plan. With him here and the 4 of them attacking, an 8th level Saint Stage old thing was not worth mentioning. Buzz! At this moment, the formation in the sky above the Su family's land suddenly dissipated. An old figure hurriedly walked out and was about to chase after Hua Mingxi. However, before her figure could fly out, her eyes quietly narrowed. At this moment, she seemed to see the formation veins connecting into a seal and crushing down from the sky, completely stopping her in her tracks. The old woman's first reaction was not to panic, but to calmly take out a voice transmission talisman to warn Hua Mingxi. Seeing this scene, Ling Zhao's smile grew wider. He suddenly waved his hand, and Xiong Huan and the others immediately rushed down. In this ancient universe formation, all divine senses were blocked. Since he wanted to kill Hua Mingxi, how could he be careless? This woman was more difficult to deal with than many of the heaven's wills he had encountered. Damn it! Who are you? The old woman frowned and glanced at the dim talisman in her hand. A trace of gloomy resentment finally appeared in her old eyes. However, Ling Xiao was too lazy to answer her question. Soul light bloomed in his eyes, and his pupils turned into a strange purple-black lotus. Buzz! Suddenly, the old woman's expression changed drastically, and her holy intent soared into the sky. At this moment, she seemed to feel a scalp-numbing wave of heat quietly enveloping the space around her. Chapter 1446. You're courting death! The white-haired old woman shouted in shock. She pushed her skinny palms out in an attempt to stop the heat wave. However, Xiong Huan and the other two suddenly descended from the sky. Fist marks and saber radiance pressed down, piercing through the entire sky. The old woman's cultivation was at the 8th grade Saint realm. But she was still sent flying several feet away by the attacks of the three people in a fluster. However, before she could defend herself, black flames suddenly broke through the void and swept toward her. Hum! The black flames were vast and mighty like a forbidden lotus, enveloping the old woman's figure. The heat that originated from her soul, blood, and bones almost instantly caused a trace of paleness to appear on her face. However, at this moment, Xiong Huan and the other two rushed over angrily from different directions. Their divine power was unparalleled, and their killing intent shook the sky. Pfft! Thus, under the restraint of Ling Zhao's Polychoria divine art, this 8th-level Saint Powerhouse was almost reduced to a live target for Xiong Huan and the others. Countless fist marks and saber radiance continued to fall, destroying the holy will on her body. Even her physical body and bones were shattered. Seeing this scene, Ling Zhao's smile grew wider. A black vortex quietly appeared in his eyes, and his figure strangely disappeared on the spot. This eye technique also originated from the Polychoria divine art that Shi Haotian's brother gave him out of kinship. It could temporarily travel through space and kill people without leaving a trace. However, this kind of travel was extremely limited. With Ling Zhao's strength, he could travel a distance of several hundred meters at most. Any further and it would be a bit difficult. Feeling the sudden strange wave behind her, the white-haired old woman's expression changed. She stretched out her hands, and there seemed to be sacred runes condensing in her palms, wanting to force Xiong Huan and the others back. Immortal light and runes bloomed alternately. If not for the suppression of the ancient universe formation, just a wisp of the wave would be enough to destroy the entire misty cloud city. But, in the face of the old woman's attack, Xiong Huan and Brute Devil didn't panic at all. There was even a hint of mockery on their faces. The two looked at each other and stretched out their hands, grabbing the old woman's hands out of thin air. Suddenly, the old woman's expression froze, and a trace of despair suddenly appeared in her eyes. Chi! A pitch-black blade directly pierced through her chest, causing blood to spurt out. Before the old woman could react, a strange devouring force devoured her bloodline and spirit. Ling Xiao withdrew the devil blade and looked up at the sky. From the old woman's soul sea, he already knew the whereabouts of Huamingxi. He immediately waved his hand to withdraw the ancient universe formation and chased after the two of them. Young Master Hua, the upper realm must be very big, right? There must be many experts, right? At the border of the cloud state, at the peak of an ancient mountain, Su Yu stood behind Huamingxi, his eyes full of expectations. Ever since she was born, she knew that the Su clan was the top clan in the Azure Sky world. However, it just so happened that his father, Su Kai, had failed in the struggle for the throne and had only brought a few hundred people to flee to the death spirit world. It had already been several thousand years since then. Yes. On Huamingxi's face, there was obviously some impatience, and even a faint uneasiness. It was reasonable to say that with the second elder's cultivation, killing a few people of the 3rd or 4th level of the Saint Realm was almost instantaneous. However, she had been waiting here for a full hour, and there was still no trace of the second elder. Could it be that something had happened? Hua Mingxi's bright eyes trembled. She took out the sound-transmitting talisman and tried to contact the white-haired old woman. Second elder, can you hear me? There was no response. Hua Mingxi frowned slightly and turned to look at Su Yu. In your Su clan, other than Su Qingshan, are there any other experts? Other experts? Su Yu was obviously stunned and shook his head slightly. No, the strongest in my Su clan is Ancestor Qingshan. According to my father, Ancestor Qingshan's cultivation was originally at the peak of the Saint Realm, but he was seriously injured and gradually fell. In addition, the spiritual qi in the death spirit world is too thin, so, enough. Hua Mingxi waved her hand, and the uneasiness in her heart grew stronger. She did not believe that Su Yu had the guts to lie to her. However, with the second elder's cultivation, how could there be an accident in such a place in the lower realm? Unless she had encountered an expert from the upper realm. However, even so, it was not easy to kill an 8th-grade Saint Realm expert. Moreover, the second elder did not even have time to send her a trace of news. Could it be inexplicably, Hua Mingxi thought of a person, or rather, only he had such power in his hands. Ling Xiao. However, Hua Mingxi could not figure out the reason for him to do so. The two of them were now considered to be allies, and each of them took what they needed. Ling Xiao did not have the slightest benefit by killing the second elder. Or was he just using this method to tell her not to make decisions on her own in the future? Or was it the Lu clan? Let's go. Hua Mingxi took a deep breath, and her eyes were faintly dignified. No matter what she had to do now was to return to the Qing-Tsang continent as soon as possible. This kind of enemy hiding in the dark was really a little terrifying. Young Master Hua, didn't you say to wait? Shut up! Hua Mingxi shouted softly and immediately lifted her feet to walk toward the entrance. However, just at the moment when her figure moved, she suddenly heard the sound of a saber suddenly resounding in the distance. She saw a ray of black light piercing the sky and slashing horizontally. Hua Mingxi's face almost instantly turned pale. When she turned her head again, Su Yu, who was behind her, had been cut into pieces by the saber radiance. Blood spilled, and at this time, the face of the former young master of the Su clan was still full of doubts. Unfortunately, her vitality had been completely extinguished. Hua Mingxi's eyes trembled, and she looked up at the void above. She saw a figure shrouded in demonic aura quietly standing there. A pair of demonic runes flashed in his eyes, evil and cold. Who are you? Hua Mingxi frowned slightly, and she felt that this demonic figure was somewhat familiar. What do you want? I can satisfy you. Spiritual stones, treasures, status. Buzz! However, before her voice fell, the demonic figure raised his hand again and slashed out again. In an instant, the sky was torn apart. The black light lingered, and it could cut the heaven and earth. Damn it! Hua Mingxi's face changed greatly, and her mind was full of thoughts. However, with her strength, it was obvious that she was no match for this demonic figure. She could only leave first. Buzz. The saber radiance slashed down, dividing heaven and earth, and destroying everything. Hua Mingxi clenched her silver teeth, and suddenly raised her hand to cast a divine talisman to meet the vast demonic force. A spiritual figure appeared in the sky, and it was ancient and vicissitudes of life. His aura had obviously surpassed the scope of the Saint Realm, but in the lower realm, it was forcibly suppressed to the peak of the Saint Realm. As the spiritual figure stretched out his hand, it was like a divine palm print, surrounded by thousands of divine runes, and directly crushed the saber radiance in his hand. Seeing this scene, Hua Mingxi's pretty face suddenly raised a touch of coldness. She took a deep look at the demonic figure and turned to leave. However, at this moment she clearly saw a thin and weak figure standing quietly behind her, and on his face there was a warm and gentle smile. Chapter 1447. Little junior brother? Hua Mingxi was stunned, and she rubbed her eyes hard. At this moment, she could see a black-clothed figure standing quietly in front of the ancient forest, looking at her with a smile. Zhang Jiuji. Suddenly, Hua Mingxi seemed to have thought of something, and her face turned even paler. Why are you here? They had not seen each other for a year since they parted in Dao Sky City. When Hua Mingxi and Lei Yan returned to the demon region, they went to the Heaven and Earth Tower to ask their master about Zhang Jiuji. However, the Heaven and Earth Tower had already disappeared into the clouds. No matter how Hua Mingxi shouted, her master did not appear. The only person who could open the Heaven and Earth Tower from the outside was her eldest senior sister. However, this eldest senior sister's level of mystery was not much inferior to his master's, and she was extremely cold. Even though the 5 sisters had cultivated for 100 years, Hua Mingxi had never heard her say anything. She only knew how to cultivate. Originally, Hua Mingxi had planned to invite her eldest senior sister and her 2 junior sisters to visit the Hua family while she was fighting for the position of the young master of the Heavenly Saint Merchant Alliance. Then, the 4 of them discussed whether their eldest senior sister should open the Heaven and Earth Tower and tell their master about Lei Yun and Zhang Jiuji. However, it seemed that her little junior brother could not wait any longer. Second senior sister, I've been looking for you so hard. Zhang Jiuji had a cold look on his face. He looked up at the void and his eyes turned cold. That was right. The Zhang Jiuji in front of her was formed by the overlapping shadows. The demonic shadow in the void was Ling Zhao's real body. Although Hua Mingxi could not escape from Ling Zhao in the lower realm with her skills, she was still the young master of the Heavenly Saint Merchant Alliance. However, she was the young master of the Hua family after all. Who knew if she had other tricks up her sleeve? It would be foolproof if she pushed all the blame to Zhang Jiuji. Why are you looking for me? Hua Mingxi thought for a while and suddenly smiled. Little junior brother, do you have something to tell me? Based on the skills that Zhang Jiuji had displayed, the old general of the sky demon behind him was at least at the supreme level. Thus, it was utterly impossible for her to descend to the lower realms. However, the saber intent unleashed by the demonic shadow above his head was truly terrifying. As such, Second Elder still hadn't returned, so there were some clues. I do have something to say to Second Senior Sister. Shouldn't Senior Sister recall that spiritual shadow? Zhang Jiuji raised his head and looked at Ling Zhao, who was retreating in a sorry state. His expression gradually turned cold. Hua Mingxi's eyes flashed with a hint of contemplation, but in the end, she did not withdraw her spirit image as Zhang Jiuji had instructed. This talisman could only be used once. Once she took back her ancestors' spiritual sense, she would completely lose her support and become a fish waiting to be slaughtered. Haha, junior brother, feel free to speak your mind. Senior sister, have you forgotten so quickly how you colluded with young Master Ling people to frame me? Zhang Jiuji's expression was gloomy. At this moment, Ling Zhao's eyes also flickered with a cold glint. With his strength, he could easily crush an ordinary saint stage expert. However, this spiritual shadow had obviously surpassed the saint level. Even though it had suppressed its cultivation, its supreme aura was still magnificent and terrifying. Therefore, he only used the power of his polychoria to deal with it carefully and did not use his true strength. The longer a spiritual shadow existed, the more energy it would consume, and it could not be recovered. Ling Zhao only needed to delay it for a moment to exhaust it to death. There was no need for him to risk his life. Haha, junior brother, you're wrong. The one who wanted to kill you was young Master Ling Zhao of the Ling people. I had no choice. How about this? Hua Mingxi narrowed her eyes and suddenly smiled. I'll tell junior brother Ling Zhao's whereabouts, and you can seek revenge on him. How about that? Hua Mingxi, you're really extremely sinister. Zhang Juji snorted coldly and suddenly stepped forward. Streams of demonic qi containing holy will surged out and enveloped heaven and earth, pressing down on Hua Mingxi's head. Saint level? How is that possible? Hua Mingxi's face changed drastically. Just as she was about to dodge, the void behind her suddenly rippled. As for Ling Xiao, who was originally trapped by the spirit shadow, he actually strangely appeared behind her and then chopped down with his blade. No. Hua Mingxi's face was filled with horror. She suddenly reached out her hand. A golden decree appeared in heaven and earth. On it were mountains, seas, and stars, containing infinite power. This decree was Hua Mingxi's life-saving sacred weapon and also the Hua family's heirloom. It had the power to seal the heavens. Vast golden light shot up into the sky and covered heaven and earth. Vaguely, millions of stars appeared in the sky and formed a divine array, enveloping Ling Xiao. In just one breath, the yin and yang of heaven and earth were destroyed. The universe was reversed and the stars dimmed. It was as if all living things would be suppressed and imprisoned by the divine decree. Caging heaven. In the entire universe, this sacred weapon was famous. Even if a supreme being expert fell into it, he or she would not be able to break free. Hua Mingxi's face was cold. With a thought, the spiritual shadow that stood in the void suddenly descended from the sky and pounced on Zhang Juji behind her. This bastard's strength really made her heart palpitate. In just over a year, he had broken through to the saint level. If he was given more time to grow, even eldest senior sister would not be able to defeat him. Kill! Hua Mingxi said indifferently. But in the next moment, her face suddenly froze. At this moment, she saw a ray of black light flickering in the endless golden light. Then, a demonic shadow suddenly walked out slowly from the divine array. It was light and gentle, and its whole body was surrounded by a vast aura of nothingness. How is that possible? Hua Mingxi's lips trembled. She could only feel an endless chill rising from the bottom of her feet. How is that possible? Logically speaking, in the lower realm, no one should be able to break the power of her divine decree. However, the demonic shadow in front of her seemed to have easily torn apart the layers of array and descended from the sky. It was like a deity, which brought great shock to Hua Mingxi. Who are you? Buzz. However, this time, Ling Xiao did not give her any chance to delay. He slashed out with the demonic blade in his hand and directly covered Hua Mingxi's body. Eldest senior sister. Little junior brother is a demon. Quickly report to master. At this critical moment, Hua Mingxi suddenly crushed a green spiritual jade in her hand. A wisp of soul consciousness floated out and disappeared. Ling Zhao's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he tore her body apart. Buzz! At the same time, Hua Mingxi's divine soul was sucked in by a divine power and appeared in a dark and strange soul sea. At this moment, the young mistress of the Hua family was still confused. Whether it was Zhang Juji's cultivation or the means of the demonic shadow just now, she found it extremely unbelievable. Moreover, she had a vague feeling that the demonic shadow's figure and eyes were somewhat familiar. Chapter 1448. Buzz! Footsteps could be heard from the end of her soul sea. Hua Mingxi was stunned. She looked up in the direction of the sound. However, she saw a figure shrouded in demonic fog slowly walking over. Soon, he appeared in front of her. Who are you? At this moment, Hua Mingxi was no longer as terrified as before. Now that her physical body was destroyed and her soul was trapped, she would not be able to escape death today. She just wanted to see who the demon in front of her was. Why did she feel that he was familiar? I promised you that I would help you find Lei Yun. Ling Xiao shook his head and smiled. The demonic fog around him dissipated, revealing his gentle and handsome face. I have found her. I will send you to see her now. Ling Xiao. Hua Mingxi's eyes widened. Her face was distorted by fear. Suddenly, she seemed to understand many things, but also she did not understand anything. She really couldn't understand why the Ling clan's young master in front of her would deliberately scheme against them. At this point, Hua Mingxi had already guessed that Lei Yun most likely died in Ling Zhao's hands. That meant that Zhang Juji was framed. But why did he do all this? What benefits could he get by killing her? Inexplicably, Hua Mingxi was a little lost. Originally, she thought that she and Ling Xiao were using each other. As long as she was still valuable, he would not show any hostility to her. Why? Buzz. However, Hua Mingxi did not have the chance to figure it out. She heard a buzzing sound. Ling Xiao waved his hand and devoured her soul completely. Beat. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Lady of Destiny. You have gained 2,000 luck points and 20,000 villain points. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Lady of Destiny. You have gained an additional reward, Luck Plundering Talisman. Beep. Congratulations to the host for successfully killing the Lady of Destiny. You have gained an additional reward, Destiny Forging Points 1%, total 65%. Hearing the system notification, Ling Zhao's face did not change in the slightest, but the corners of his mouth curled up into a sinister smile. From Hua Mingxi's soul memories, he had learned many secrets about the Heaven and Earth Imperial Palace. Just as he had expected, Zhang Juji's remaining 3 senior sisters were also famous figures in the Azure Sky world. This was especially true of their eldest sister, whose background was even more incredible. She was in the echelon, and was one of the top figures in the current generation. According to what Hua Mingxi knew, the secret key to opening Tian DK was with this senior sister. As for the other 2 people, they surprised Ling Xiao. They were actually from the same ancient clan. Interesting. Ling Xiao smiled, and his figure instantly disappeared from where he stood. At the same time, in the center of the azure sky, he saw a divine mountain towering in the clouds. It was majestic and ancient. There seemed to be celestial music permeating the air, and there were many divine shadows. It was like an otherworldly place, like an immortal palace in the 9 heavens, and it was filled with endless Tao. On the peak of the mountain, a woman in gray clothes and long hair that flowed down like a waterfall stood with her hands behind her back, and she gazed into the distance. The woman was extremely beautiful. Her skin was like jade, white and delicate. Between her brows, there was an elegant and cold temperament. She was otherworldly, and one would find her breathtaking at first glance, but one would not dare to profane her. She was like a goddess from the 9 heavens, and she was different from all living beings. Her eyes were filled with a piercingly cold intent that could shake one's soul. She was high and mighty. At this moment, she was gazing into the distance, and she seemed to be worried. There was a trace of worry between her brows, which made her look even more delicate. It was as if, under this iceberg-like face, she was no more than an ordinary woman. She was sad, happy, timid, and fearful. Eldest sister, Master is calling for you. The gray-clothed woman only turned around when a shout sounded from behind her. She looked at the white-clothed young lady who was walking towards her with a blank expression in her eyes. Seeing this, a bitter smile appeared on the white-clothed girl's face. She actually repeated what she had just said. Eldest senior sister, Master is calling for you. The woman in gray immediately nodded. She was gentle and respectful, and there was not a trace of arrogance in her tone. Eldest sister, there's no need to be courteous with me. Quickly go. The martial uncles have gone over as well. The young woman in white chuckled and held the woman in gray's arm. The 2 of them headed towards the magnificent palace on the mountain. At this moment, in the lower realm, a dragon chariot swept across the void, heading toward Feng State at an extremely fast speed. The figure of the young man on the dragon carriage suddenly disappeared, and before Yi Qingchan and the other 2 girls could react, he reappeared on the carriage. "Young master." Yi Qingqian raised her brows slightly, and a smile spread on the corners of her mouth. At this moment, she could clearly sense that the young master before her was the real young master. Although the aura from before was the young master's, it wasn't the real young master. It was like a type of intuition. It was a very strange feeling. "Young master, wouldn't Hua Mingxi disrupt our plans by bringing Su Yu up to the upper realm?" Su Yan frowned slightly, and killing intent was hidden in her eyes. "It's fine." But at this moment, Ling Xiao just shook his head and said calmly, "They can't go to Qingtsang." "Young master, you mean?" Su Yan's eyes narrowed. She already had a guess in her heart, and a bright smile bloomed on her face. But on second thought, she was a little puzzled. Young master spent so much effort to set up this trap just to make use of Hua Mingxi to bring her into the Sky Sacred Business Alliance. But if Hua Mingxi couldn't return to Qingtsang, then, don't worry, I'll take care of everything. Ling Xiao smiled, and Su Yan heaved a sigh of relief. Her eyes were cold as she said, "Young master, I think the Su family can't stay." Hearing that, Ling Xiao raised his eyebrows, and the smile on his face deepened. "Yen has matured." "Young master, what are you guys talking about? It seems to be very mysterious." At the side, Xianyuan Weiyang had a puzzled expression, and she looked at the three of them with a confused gaze. However, Yi Qingqian only rubbed her little head and said softly, "You little melon, when will you stop being so muddle-headed?" A day passed in the blink of an eye. At the center of Feng Prefecture, on a majestic ancient mountain. At this moment, there were many people on the mountain, and it was bustling with noise and excitement. But if one took a closer look, one would see a handsome young man in white standing with his hands behind his back. Beside him stood a young lady in luxurious clothes. Both of them looked calm as they faced hundreds of cultivators. "Lin Yan, I didn't expect you to come to my immortal form sect." In front of the crowd, a young man in black snorted, and a hint of mockery flashed in his eyes. "Lin Wuji, to think that I treated you as an elder brother. How dare you team up with Hua Fei to harm me?" The white-robed Lin Yan gritted his teeth, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. "Bastard! Who do you think you are? How dare a bastard like you covet Saintess Fei? Saintess Fei is already merciful for not killing you. I didn't expect you to be so unrepentant." Lin Wuji snorted coldly, and his expression became even more disdainful. The reason for that was because it was said that the ancestor of that sect was someone from the upper realm. His origin was quite grand. Since Lin Yan dared to come to his doorstep today, Lin Wuji would naturally not let him off. "Brother Lin Yan, why are you talking nonsense with them? Ask Xian Yi to kill them all." Beside Lin Yan, the well-dressed young lady snorted coldly. Her eyes flickered with a strange blood-red color. From her appearance, she did not look very old. Moreover, she called Lin Yan brother. However, there was an inexplicable sense of vicissitudes in her eyes. "No, Xian Yi, this time. I want to end this grudge personally." Lin Yan shook his head stubbornly. At this moment, he fully displayed the character of a chosen one. "Clearly, there is someone behind me who can easily settle everything. Sigh, I don't need that. I want to do it myself. Otherwise, how can I enjoy acting tough?" The greatest joy in this world was to personally crush those who had framed and harmed you under your feet. Of course, Lin Yan was extremely grateful to Yu Xuani. Back when he was a cripple and was ridiculed by others, it was this younger sister who had been adopted by his father since young who carefully took care of him, protected him, and accompanied him through storms to rise again. Moreover, Lin Yan did not know if it was an illusion, but he always felt that Yu Xuani's strength was unfathomable. A year ago, when the world of souls was recovering, Yu Xuani left the Lin family for a period of time. When she returned, she brought with her many spiritual materials and treasures. One of the treasures even helped him recover from all his injuries and awaken an even more terrifying bloodline divine physique. In Lin Yan's heart, although Yushwani was his younger sister, she was also his greatest benefactor. Unknowingly, there was a trace of affection between the two of them that surpassed that of siblings. However, now that the 9 states was in turmoil and immortal opportunity had appeared, the two of them tacitly suppressed their feelings and worked hard to cultivate. Even so, Lin Yan once swore on his Tao heart that when he stood at the top of the world, he would give Yushwani a grand wedding. In this life, I will not let my beloved down. Today, Lin Yan was originally worried about climbing the mountain. Moreover, Yushwani had personally told him that there was no need to fear anyone. Therefore, he came. You don't know what's good for you. Lin Yan, let me see how much you've improved in these 3 years. Hearing Yushwani's arrogant words, Lin Wuji felt even more uneasy. However, in the entire 9 states, the only ones who had the strength to destroy the immortal form sect were the young masters of the upper world. He knew Yushwani's identity. She was the abandoned daughter of Lin Yan's father. How could she be a match for the immortal form sect? Humph. Then I'll kill you first, then I'll kill Hua Fei. Lin Yan nodded slightly, showing no signs of fear. He took a step forward and appeared in front of Lin Wuji in an instant. Then, he punched out. Arrogant. Lin Wuji's eyes flickered. Spiritual light danced around his body. An exalted realm aura swept out, enveloping heaven and earth and causing the void to crack. His cultivation had already entered the exalted realm during the spiritual Qi revival. Now, he had broken through to the 2nd level of the exalted realm. His talent was top-notch even in the 9 state. On the other hand, Lin Yan was only a 5th-level divine emperor when he was crippled. Even if he had a fortuitous encounter in the past 3 years, there was no way he could compete with Lin Wuji. Thinking of this, Lin Wuji clenched his fist and met Lin Yan's fist. Boom! The moment the two attacks collided, a vast divine aura swept across the entire square. Terrifying spiritual energy ripples spread out and sent the surrounding people flying several feet away. Countless cracks appeared on the bluestone ground beneath their feet. However, to everyone's horror, the scene of Lin Yan vomiting blood and being sent flying did not happen. On the other hand, Lin Wuji's expression changed. He staggered a few steps back before stopping in his tracks. His outstretched arm was now hanging limply by his side. Even the aura on his body seemed to have withered for a short period of time. How is this possible? Senior brother Wuji lost. Lin Wuji, is this all you've got? Lin Yan stood tall and straight with a calm expression on his face. His cultivation level was indeed lower than Lin Wuji's. He was only a 1st-level exalted realm cultivator. However, his physical body and bloodline were not something that could be defeated by people of the same cultivation level as him. Therefore, the bones in Lin Wuji's arm were completely shattered by the punch. 30 years in the east, 30 years in the west. Today, I, Lin Yan, have reached the west of the river. Lin Wuji raised his head and looked at the young man who was slowly walking toward him. A trace of fear finally appeared in his eyes. Now, it's time for you to repent. Lin Yan no longer hesitated. He charged forward and punched out again. Buzz! However, at this moment, a buzzing sound suddenly rang out from the back mountain of the immortal form sect. A graceful figure dressed in golden robes flew over at an extremely fast speed. She was surrounded by divine light and looked insufferably arrogant. Chapter 1450. It's Junior Sister Hua. Junior Sister Hua has finally come out of seclusion. Cries of surprise could be heard from the mountain peak. Countless disciples of the immortal form sect shouted at the top of their lungs. Hua Fei was the daughter of the immortal form sect master. She was extremely talented and beautiful. Her status meant that she was destined to be the center of attention in the sect. Moreover, this junior sister Hua was cheerful and gentle. As a result, countless disciples of the Immortal Forms sect had a crush on her. Back then, Lin Yen was one of them. He was fortunate enough to be favored by junior sister Hua Fei. Unfortunately, Lin Yen was too eager for quick success and exposed his true nature before he could become junior sister Hua Fei's Dao companion. In the end, not only did he become the first disciple to be expelled from the Immortal Forms sect in the past 10,000 years, but his cultivation was also crippled by Lin Wuji, the young master of the Lin clan. Of course, this was only known to the world. Hua Fei Lin Yen stood in the air with his fists clenched. At this moment, there was a clearly complicated look in his eyes. Sadness, anger, and a hint of nostalgia. Once upon a time, Hua Fei was more important to him than Yushwani. The two of them cultivated together, experienced together, and were inseparable. Even though there were many senior brothers in the sect who were many times more powerful than him, she still chose to be with him without any hesitation. She did not even try to hide it. This feeling of being acknowledged was truly touching. Therefore, Lin Yen could be said to have given his all to Hua Fei. He took good care of this young girl who was older than him but had a pure temperament. However, Lin Yen would never have dreamed that all of this would happen. It was all a scam concocted by Lin Wuji and Hua Fei. Their goal was the flame spirit bloodline in his body. This bloodline was one of the top bloodlines in the world of the 9 states. After awakening, one's spiritual energy would evolve into a strange power, the power of flame. Not only did this power have the power to burn everything, but it could also evolve into countless divine abilities. Hua Fei knew of Lin Yan's talent and took the initiative to approach him. She even gave him spiritual materials and pills to help him awaken his bloodline. How despicable! When Lin Yan drank the cup of spirit wine mixed with the incapacitating agent, his Dao heart almost collapsed. He really did not expect that behind all this beauty, there was such a despicable plot. When he saw Hua Fei and Lin Wuji standing side by side with ambiguous gazes, his heart turned green. The reason he had returned to the Immortal Forms sect was to crush this adulterous pair beneath his feet and destroy their reputations. Long time no see, Lin Yen. Hua Fei's figure descended from the sky. She didn't even look at Lin Wuji, whose arm had been shattered. In her eyes, be it Lin Yen or Lin Wuji, they were merely stepping stones on her path to immortality. What true feelings! Since they were on this path, they naturally had to work hard to ascend to the heavens. Meeting people. Behind Lin Yen, Yushwani snorted coldly as if she did not care about the holy maiden of the Immortal Forms sect. Hearing her insults, Hua Fei frowned slightly. She glanced at the former with a gentle gaze, and a miserable smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. Lin Yen, I am so happy to see that you are able to pull yourself together. It seems like you have found a new partner in these 3 years. Suddenly, Lin Yan's heart was in a mess. He didn't know how to express his anger and humiliation. The disappointment on Hua Fei's face made him feel as if he was hallucinating. Could it be that she was forced to do this? Or could it be that she regretted it in the past 3 years? Lin Yen, you must hate me, right? Don't worry, I am standing right here. You can vent your anger. Hua Fei slowly closed her eyes. The surrounding people were stunned, and they felt even more confused. Based on junior sister Fei's attitude, could it be that there was more to what happened back then? Fei Lin Wuji's eyes darkened. Just as he was about to speak, Hua Fei raised her hand and interrupted him. Senior brother Wuji, you don't have to say anything. I have already made up my mind. What? Lin Yan's eyes narrowed. He stared blankly at the face that was inches away from him. Over the past 3 years, he had imagined her regretful and despairing expression countless times. However, at this moment, he realized that he didn't hate her as much as he thought he did. Brother Lin Yen, what are you waiting for? Quick, kill her. Yu Xuanyi's face was cold. The more she looked at Hua Fei, the more she felt that she was a hypocrite. At this moment, she couldn't help but want to kill this woman with one slap. Alright. Today I will fulfill your wish. Lin Yen took a deep breath. His face suddenly turned cold. He took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Hua Fei. He raised his hand and slapped the girl's face. Slap. The slap was crisp and clear, but it didn't have any power. Hua Fei's face instantly swelled up. She looked at Lin Yen with sorrow in her eyes. After this slap, you and I are even. Lin Yen gritted his teeth. His gaze was extremely complicated. However, just as he finished speaking, he saw the young girl in front of him suddenly stretch out a jade-like hand and lightly press it on his chest. Lin Yan's expression froze. At this moment, he was completely caught off guard. His entire body was instantly sent flying by a terrifying wave of heat. He spat out a mouthful of blood. However, compared to the pain on his body, the last ray of light in Lin Yan's heart seemed to have been destroyed. Lin Yan, it has been 3 years. I have always regretted that I did not help you when you made a mistake. That's right, I feel very guilty. I owe you this slap. But, Lin Yan said. You are right. I am sorry. I owe you this slap. But Hua Fei shook her head. Her eyes were cold, and there was no trace of the sorrow from before. You have truly disappointed me. Not only do you not repent, but you also invert the truth and frame me and senior brother Wuji. Lin Yan, do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you have someone backing you? At this moment, Hua Fei could guess that Lin Yan dared to come to the Immortal Form sect not only because he had recovered his strength, but also because he had other experts backing him. It was hard not to be wary of Yu Xuanyi's arrogance. However, the Immortal Form sect was one of the most powerful sects in Feng Province. They also had the backing of the upper world. It was not something that any Tom, Dick, or Harry could touch. This slap was enough to cripple Lin Yan. There was no doubt about it. What? I knew it. Junior sister Hua is too sentimental. She is too soft-hearted. That's right. A beast like Lin Yan should be sentenced to death. Junior sister Hua, kill him. Hearing this, the Immortal Form sect disciples finally understood why junior sister Hua had acted so humbly. It turned out that she had been blaming herself for the past 3 years. How dare you act like a demon when you are about to die? I will kill you. Seeing Lin Yan fall pathetically to the ground with blood splattering everywhere, Yu Xuanyi could no longer suppress the killing intent in her heart. Her eyes suddenly turned red. Chapter 1451. Buzz! Suddenly, a demonic aura was awakened. The vast expanse of sky suddenly turned blood-red. Wind and clouds gathered and lightning fell. At this moment, countless powerful figures walked out of the main hall of the Immortal Form sect. They looked at the square with solemn eyes. This aura, is it from that clan? A middle-aged man in a dark green robe stood in front of the main hall with a solemn expression. That's right. I didn't expect Fei to offend someone from that clan. Sect Master, the elders behind him were also shocked. They had clearly sensed Yu Xuanyi's identity. Let's wait and see. Otherwise, if that clan seeks revenge, our Immortal Form sect can only await destruction. But, Fei, Sect Master, the person above our Immortal Form sect. I'm not sure if that person has descended. However, that clan has been very active recently. It's said that they are involved with an imperishable inheritance in the upper realm. Sai, the Immortal Form sect master, sighed. His sect's ancestor had said that the Immortal Form sect had a supreme background in the upper realm. They were called the Taigu Ling people. However, the Immortal Form sect master did not know exactly how supreme they were. After all, it had been too long. With their knowledge, they did not know about the changes in the upper realm. Moreover, in the eyes of those from the lower realm, there should not be too much of a difference between the two imperishable inheritances. They were like frogs at the bottom of a well. No matter how strong an ant was, it could only cling to a branch. It was like playing the lute to a cow. At this moment, in the square in front of the main hall, Yushwani's body was glowing with Tao runes. Her aura had reached the 7th level of the exalted realm. Even Lin Wuji, the #1 prodigy of the immortal form sect, was only at the 2nd level of the exalted realm. However, he was already one of the most outstanding prodigies in the 9 states. It was too terrifying. Where did this Yushwani come from? How could her cultivation be so terrifying? 7th level of the exalted realm. Hua Fei Er's expression froze. She was clearly shocked. Although she had guessed that this girl's identity was not ordinary, it seemed that she had underestimated her. "Humph! How dare you hurt my brother Lin Yan? Die!" Yushwani snorted coldly and moved towards Hua Fei. However, she was stopped by a palm. Yushwani frowned. When she turned around, she saw that Lin Yan had already stood up and was standing behind her. "Brother Lin Yan, I'll do it." Lin Yan wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The confusion and hesitation in his eyes had long disappeared. There was even a hint of killing intent flickering in his eyes. That's right. He should have thought of it earlier. With this woman's viciousness, how could she regret and blame herself? One betrayal was enough, and he had almost fallen into her trap again. If it wasn't for the fact that he had awakened a new talent, that palm strike would have been enough to cripple his cultivation. Hua Fei, you're right. With this palm strike, our relationship is severed. Lin Yan took a deep breath and pulled Yushwani behind him. "Come, let me see how strong you've become after fusing with my flame's spirit bloodline. Lin Yan, if you leave now, we can forget about our previous grievances." Hua Fei Er's eyes were solemn. She felt uneasy. Both Yushwani and Lin Yan gave her a strong sense of oppression. The two of them probably had the strength to crush him. "I've said it before. Today you will pay the price." Lin Yan shook his head and clenched his fist. Streaks of crimson spiritual energy gathered and surged with power. Flame energy. Hua Fei Er's eyes trembled. She finally understood why Lin Yan dared to return to the immortal form sect. He had awakened the flame spirit bloodline again. "Since you're so stubborn," Hua Fei nodded. Before she could finish her sentence, she stretched out her hand. Streaks of crimson spiritual light flashed in the sky and turned into sharp blades that shot towards Lin Yan. Buzz! The world buzzed. Everyone could only see streaks of light flashing by. The heat contained within the streaks of light made even Lin Wuji tremble. However, just as the streaks of light were about to land on Lin Yan's body, a crimson light suddenly surrounded the young man. In just a short moment, his body was shrouded by the crimson light and his appearance could not be seen clearly. When the streaks of light landed on him, only a series of ear-piercing clangs could be heard. Clang, clang, clang. Hearing the voice, a wisp of surprise appeared on everyone's faces. Hua Fei took a few steps back cautiously and looked coldly at the area where the crimson light was. Soon, when the endless brilliance dissipated, a figure covered in crimson mysterious crystals stepped out. The crystal armor was smooth and transparent. It was the toughest defense in the world. It was impossible to break through. Hua Fei was stunned. The flame spirit bloodline was indeed terrifying, but it was only limited to spiritual energy. However, Lin Yan had turned his flame energy into a divine armor. This was beyond Hua Fei's understanding. "Actually, I should thank you." Lin Yan stepped forward and walked towards Hua Fei step by step. "If you had not taken away my bloodline, I would not have been able to awaken this flame spirit battle body." Flame spirit battle body. Hua Fei's pupils shrank and she finally felt a trace of fear. She clenched her fist and a golden ancient sword appeared in her hand. Then, she slashed at Lin Yan furiously. Buzz! A sword radiance that was 100 feet long appeared in the sky. The sword essence contained in it was enough to shatter heaven and earth. However, in the face of such a terrifying sword aura, Lin Yan's face was expressionless. He allowed the sword radiance to fall from the sky and land on his shoulder. Clang! A loud sound was heard. Hua Fei-er was stunned when she saw that the sword that she had used all her strength could not break through Lin Yan's defense. It only left a faint white mark on his shoulder. How is this possible? Hua Fei-er panicked and her face turned pale. At this moment, Lin Yan did not say anything else. The moment he stepped out, he appeared in front of Hua Fei. Wuji, save me! At this moment of life and death, Hua Fei finally let go of her dignity and screamed. Lin Wuji gritted his teeth and unleashed his honorable realm aura. But, just as he took a step forward, the space in front of him suddenly rippled for a moment. Then, Yushwani descended from the sky and slammed her palm down on Lin Wuji's head. Lin Wuji's eyes narrowed and he raised his hand in a panic to block it. However, the moment the two palms collided, Lin Wuji's face froze. His only remaining arm, along with half of his body, was shattered by Yushwani's palm. Chapter 1452. Pucci. The entire immortal form sect fell into a dead silence when they saw the bloodied figure on the ground. Everyone's face was filled with shock and horror. Especially the petite figure who stood in the air with her arms crossed in front of her chest. She gave off an inexplicable feeling of shock. On the surface, Yushwani looked like a naive young girl. She even looked a little innocent. However, compared to Lin Yan, she was even more ruthless and merciless. I'll kill anyone who dares to hurt my big brother Lin Yan. Yushwani snorted coldly. Suddenly, she swung her palm and smashed the struggling Lin Wuji into a pile of minced meat. Gulp. At this moment, even the elders of the Immortal Form sect were horrified, let alone the disciples of the Immortal Form sect. The #1 prodigy of the Immortal Form sect, the famous monstrous talent of the Feng Prefecture, and the young master of the Lin clan, was killed by this young girl in 2 moves. Lin Yan, don't tell me you don't remember the happiness we had before? Hua Fei-er was completely terrified when she saw Lin Wuji's tragic death. At this moment, all her attacks were useless against Lin Yan. This feeling was really despairing. Hua Fei-er, put away your hypocritical face. Lin Yan snorted coldly. He suddenly stretched out his palm and was about to press it down on Hua Fei. However, at this moment, a soft sigh sounded from the great hall in the distance. A figure descended from the sky and stood in front of Lin Yan. That dignified and solemn face was filled with a tinge of melancholy. Yen-er, enough is enough. Mas. Lin Yan stopped in his tracks. A complicated look appeared on his face. The sect master of the Immortal Form sect was the person he respected the most in his heart. However, when he was framed by Hua Fei-er, his master remained silent and allowed the two of them to cripple his cultivation and chase him out of the Immortal Form sect. However, the sect master could not ignore the fact that his daughter was being bullied. Hua Sun, you allowed Hua Fei-er to frame me, and now you're telling me to stop? Lin Yan gritted his teeth. His voice was filled with resentment. In the first place, there should be no interference from the elders in a fight between peers. Not to mention, he had won fair and square today. The Immortal Form sect was known as the #1 orthodox sect in Feng province. Could it be that they were going to become the laughingstock of the 9 provinces? Lin Yan Fei-er is at fault, but she doesn't deserve to die. How about this? I'll punish her to reflect on her mistakes in seclusion for 100 years. If you want to return to the Immortal Form sect, you can take over the position of holy disciple. The Immortal Form sect master pondered for a moment before suddenly speaking. Brother Lin Yan, you don't have to worry. Do whatever you want. If anyone dares to stop you today, Xian Yi will kill them for you. Before Lin Yen could reply, Yushwani had already walked to his side and said calmly, "You, little girl, you should be from the blood feather race, right? You have to know that your actions today will very likely lead to the punitive expedition of the two major forces. Have you really thought this through?" The Immortal Form Sect Master frowned. The 9 prefectures had always had a common understanding. Although the 3 great sinner clans were suppressed here by the Realm Lord, and all the experts in their clans were dead. Even so, the 3 clans were still extremely powerful and ordinary forces could not afford to offend them. Moreover, it was said that the Blood Feather race had recently become very close to an immortal inheritance from the upper world. Given the Immortal Form Sect's foundation, they did not dare to compete with them. "Haha, Hua Sun, you think too highly of yourself." At this moment, a sneer was heard from the sky. Following that, a figure in blood-red robes tore through the clouds and appeared behind Yushwani. It was an old man surrounded by a bloody aura. His holy aura was unparalleled. When he sensed the ripples from Lin Dong's body, a look of horror finally surfaced on the Immortal Form Sect Master's face. 5th grade true saint. Even the Grand Elder of the Immortal Form Sect, who was still alive, was powerless against such a person. What was this girl's status in the Blood Feather race? Why did she have such an expert protecting her? "Kid, kill whoever you want. Even if the Heavenly Emperor comes today, he won't be able to stop you. How can I allow anyone to humiliate the person that the young master of the Blood Feather race has taken a liking to?" The old man in blood-red robes laughed sinisterly. Of course, as one of the 3 divine clans, even if the Blood Feather race did not have a foundation, how could these ants from the lower world compare to them? One had to know that the 3 clans were suppressed by the Realm Lord Palace. One could imagine how powerful they were. "Third Grandpa, what are you talking about?" Hearing that, Yushwani's face turned red. Her eyes were filled with shyness. On the other hand, Lin Yen and Hua Fei were stunned. "Young lord of the Blood Feather race?" Especially Hua Fei, her eyes flickered with a wisp of dense shock. She did not expect that a human youth that she did not want would be favored by the young lord of the Blood Feather race, one of the 3 divine clans. Could it be that Lin Yen was especially strong in certain aspects? Slap, slap. This slap to the face was even more painful than before. "Young lord of the Blood Feather race? Xuanyi Yu." Lin Yen was also shocked and looked at Yushwani in disbelief. "Brother Lin Yen, don't worry. I will always be yours." Yushwani smiled and said calmly. "SSS, such a straightforward confession caused the hearts of the Immortal Form Sect disciples to tremble. Lin Yen was really King Lucky. Wherever he went, he would be favored by a girl. "Kid, kill her. Don't disappoint my little Xuanyi." The blood-red robed elder's voice was hoarse, and there was a hint of threat in his tone. After all, if Lin Yen did not kill Hua Fei today, he might still have feelings for her. Killing her would be the true end of the relationship. Phew. Lin Yen was silent for a moment before he said in a deep voice, "Back then, you dug out my bloodline and destroyed my cultivation, but you spared my life. Today, I will destroy your cultivation as well." "Lin Yen! How dare you?" Hua Fei screamed in despair. Destroying her cultivation was more painful than killing her. "Father! Let alone your father, even the patriarch of the Immortal Form Sect won't be able to save you today." The blood-red robed elder smiled disdainfully. Blood runes appeared in his eyes and a shocking power of blood surged out, intimidating the entire Immortal Form Sect. "Blood Feather Tribe, my Immortal Form Sect is protected by the Ling people of the Upper Realm. Do you really want to become enemies with my sect?" The Immortal Form Sect Master clenched his fists. He could only place his hopes on the Upper Realm to scare the 3 of them away. "Ha ha ha ha, Ling people of the Upper Realm. Hua Sun, you're bragging too much. Even if the young master of the Ling people is here, do you think he will offend the Blood Feather Tribe for a small Immortal Form Sect?" the blood-red robed elder laugh. But, just as he finished speaking, he felt a chill in his heart. The originally clear sky suddenly fell into darkness. In the vast sky, the sound of a sword resonated with an unparalleled killing intent. Suddenly, the void shattered and all chaos disappeared. A low and icy cold voice boomed across the entire immortal form sect. How dare you humiliate my tribe? The Blood Feather tribe shall be slaughtered. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.